Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. I think this is episode 277. Does anyone else know?
Yeah, that sounds about
say
right.
on here. I don't even know anymore. Can I check that? Say two. I think it says 276. I think it's 277, so we might have to change that.
Yeah, it was 276 last week because you just updated
It was just such a good time.
Yeah, you just
Let's just continue it on.
Did you call action? Yeah.
You called action before.
No,
Josh Porter's here. It's been a long time. You were, I think, on episode 2 or 3, maybe one since then. But
is that really one of the first couple?
it was.
It was episode 1 with Mike.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Where it was just completely raw.
And then he was also in episode 6.
Okay.
21.
We had, I think, that Yeti mic.
Oh, yeah.
One mic, shared mic.
One mic. So it's the Omni. Yeah, it's the omnidirectional. Anyways, yeah. Welcome, guys. Episode 277, probably. Nate Hale's here.
Jeez.
Sean is the live studio audience. We already have some people tuning in live. If you guys are listening on the podcast apps after the fact, Wednesday night, 7:30, right? 8 o'clock, 8:10, whatever. Running a little bit behind tonight, but check us out live. Be a part of the conversation. Happy to have Josh Porter back in. He owns IAMedia, which is based out of Columbus, Ohio. It is a media production company. And we'll get into that a little bit more in part 2, but he's going to be kind of the focus of, obviously, the part 2 discussion and where we can go from there and how it applies to everyone else. But cigar enthusiast, not as big of a bourbon enthusiast.
That's all I drink. You didn't know that about me?
I guess we don't hang out anymore.
It's been a while. I was on episode 2, so you can
And you had me at your house for
by
New Year's
every week.
2019.
Yeah.
I think it was.
You didn't stay long. I still remember
So
that.
about like Jesus, Sean. Just kidding.
Cut.
Can't do that on this show. But yeah, no, it's good to have you back in here, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. You like cigars? You like bourbon?
Not my game.
Yeah,
Thank
they can't hear you when you don't point your face at the mic.
Yeah, you should know that. I want to thank you guys that support us on patreon.com. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast or Venmo at Bourbon and BS. On Patreon, you can do it once, twice. You can kind of do it continuously, monthly, and it does a monthly withdrawal and deposit to us, which we appreciate that support. There's a $5 tier, a $10 tier, and a $25 tier. Or you can do the one-time donation or contribution at Venmo at Bourbon and BS. We appreciate all that. If there's ever like a bottle or something that you want us to update on here, let us know. If you want to throw some money to support that or buy a bottle, let us know what you want us to buy, and we can go from there. Pretty simple there, obviously. Ray Cheshire, good morning. You're late. We are late. Good morning to you. And then also Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. That's kind of where this is all based out of. Columbus, Ohio. Tinderbox at Easton Town Center and Mall. Great high-end retail area, great stores, restaurants, and, of course, Easton Tinderboxes there. That's where you're going to find some Crowned Head cigars, such as what's left of our featured cigar tonight, which is the Azul y Oro. And that's going to be Crowned Heads limited edition. No longer available, I believe, most places, but we do still have some at the shop. So check them out. It's a small quantity, but other Crowned Heads cigars. And we have some news coming up from Crowned Heads. They just released a brand new cigar that we will be one of the very few shops in the area, if not the state, that's going to carry their new cigar. So we'll definitely get Jake on or Miguel to feature that when that comes out. Also want to thank Altadis USA for the continued support. We have the Romeo by Romeo for the second part of the show, and we appreciate that continued support from you guys at Altadis USA, Josh Bentley especially, who always puts that extra effort in getting us on the sponsorship there. So we appreciate that. BS Cigar Company, the gold and silver are available. The gold made by Plasencia, the silver by Espinosa, and they are going to be available at Tinderbox at Easton as well as a handful of other retailers, or you can always contact us at the show at Tinderbox at Easton or BS Cigar Company through social media, and we will get some out to you. It's easy. And then if you like some of what you see, like I've got the green St. Patty's Day podcast shirt. Nate's got the
it's nice.
That's
Felt.
a little aggressive.
Felt.
A little aggressive. And you got the gray and black. That's kind of like the murdered out one. You really have to look at it, but I love that shirt.
Yeah, you have to stare at someone.
I have that, by the way.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Boys medium.
Boys medium. Perfect.
Extra
Tough
medium.
to get over that hat.
That's so wide.
Yeah, pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. But yeah, buyjack.com/bourbon and BS. There's that. There's also some other BS Cigar Company shirts on there, 3/4 sleeves. You got that official Bourbon and BS Barrelhead black camo hoodie is available on there as well. So check that out. And without further ado, that's enough about the business side of things.
Ooh, finally, can I light this up?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Okay.
Ray says we seem a little bit fuzzy. I think that might be on your end, unless you're talking about our attitudes.
I've been fuzzy all day.
That's what you were
I
saying.
told you that. I don't know, like just tired
You might have to turn
out
him
of
up.
it. Tired out of it, but I'm perking up a little bit.
That's whiskey will do that.
Whiskey will do that. All right.
But yeah, I'm happy you're on. So Josh came by last week. Ryan Newman was on the show. Great episode actually last week. I thought both part 1 and part 2, and just absolutely great. And Josh came over. What?
I was just thinking about last week, and we were talking
Minus
about before.
the fact my garage smelled like weed for like 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah, I was sitting right next to the.
Bro,
What? Oh God.
I walked out in the morning and I'm just like, I think my dog had.
Well,
very
Tony
nice
had
guy.
a contact
Very
eye.
nice.
Well, so last week,
Are we all high?
I think my
that
dog
high?
was. No, I don't know.
well, last
Maybe.
week Jess was in the garage for the first half, and then once,
And then he lit up. He's like,
oh no, when it came out of the bag, I could smell it, and I was like, hey, well, she had a doctor's appointment the next day, so
I don't think.
so
Was it for a drug test?
well, that was part of it.
Oh,
Yeah,
then
they were
maybe
doing a
that-
blood test.
Ha.
So, yeah. But yeah, I could smell as soon as the bag opened. I was like,
Yeah, it was funny. We
"Dang,
had an audience like Josh was here and your wife was
They
here.
can hear that when you do that with
and,
the mic, by the way.
And
They can? Okay.
all right, guys, let's act like we've
Has
done this
anybody ever
before.
caught one on fire? I almost did. No, Jesus.
You got to talk in the mic when you're, even when it's.
Has
babbling.
anybody caught one on fire?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
So
Don't
it's
be the
always the
first.
first. Yeah,
I got covered.
we can take off that little foam thing for you if you'd like. So they're gonna hear it, but that's cool.
Right.
Just making sounds. So you do this for a living? That's surprising. For those that don't know you.
Yeah.
What are we drinking tonight? Let's just get into this. This has been a little bit of a random first part here. So we are drinking. This is a new one. If you can see it here, it is the Clermont Steep. I think I'm saying that right. Clermont Steep.
Yep.
And this is malted barley. This is, it says small batch on there. It also says American single malt whiskey. And you see Freddie No's signature on there. So what does that mean, Nate?
So Freddie No, so from
It's also on the glass bottle underneath.
so Freddie knows actually. I mean, bourbon guys really know his name. He's one of, current. If you had a Mount Rushmore of current whiskey makers, like he's on that mountain. So it's coming out of Beam Suntory. So this is a Jim Beam product coming out of it's distilled, bottled in Clermont,
Okay.
Kentucky.
Okay.
So it's an American single malt whiskey, which is actually the fastest growing whiskey category in the United States.
Yeah.
So that makes it not a bourbon right off the bat,
It is
right?
not a bourbon.
Because it's in.
Say that
black
again. It's
from
what?
there?
Repeat what you said.
So American single malt whiskey is the fastest growing whiskey category in the U.S.
Okay.
So it's 100% barley,
Yep.
malted barley.
Yep. 100% hand selected malted barley. It says on there.
This one's aged in New American oak for 5 years. Interesting with this compared to a bourbon. So most bourbons are going to be like in a level 3, level 4 char.
Mm-hmm.
This is a level 1, which is the shortest amount of time.
Just flashes it.
That's all I do. And then, so
That's interesting.
because
But it also sits in there for 5 years.
yes,
So you got a little bit of, different than like the 4 char, 3 char, and then it's like 24 months, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
yeah. So because it's still a newer category in the whiskey world, there's not yet a set of rules and regulations by the U.S. Treasury Tax and Trade Bureau.
right?
But back in 2016, a few distillers that do make single malt whiskeys in the U.S. got together and actually came up with like their set of rules that they're going to abide by, and those are the rules that are probably going to be written into regulation by the Trade Bureau.
Is there a reason you think they're doing this? Is this because bourbon is being so saturated now that they're going to try to go a different American whiskey route here with single malt?
Well, this really started catching on a little bit in the U.S. back in 2016.
Okay, with anything in particular?
Well, like you have Westward and Son, Courage and Conviction, which is out of Virginia.
Okay.
They do theirs in different type of casks, and usually for about 6 years. But it's also, so when someone says single malt whiskey, what's the first thing that pops in your head?
Scotch.
Yeah. Why don't a lot of people like Scotch?
Too peaty.
Right? Now, each of the areas within Scotland produce very distinctive types of Scotch. There are some that are definitely more peated than others, and that's because they will burn the peat moss in order to dry the barley, they do it directly, so that smoke is actually hitting the barley directly. So that's why you get a lot of that smoky characteristic from a Scotch. So not everyone is a big fan of Scotch because of that smoky characteristic that it has. So a single malt whiskey like this, almost like with Irish whiskey, where it's dried kind of from indirect heat.
Yeah.
You're not getting that direct contact with the smoke. So it doesn't necessarily have that smoke or that peatiness to it. And because it doesn't have the corn, it doesn't necessarily have the sweetness either. Because in a bourbon, all that sweetness primarily is coming from the corn. There's no corn in this. It's just malted
barley.
Yeah.
When I finally got to having my balls drop, I started drinking, Scotch, I think, originally.
Yeah.
Just, kind of getting older there. And then I finally switched to bourbon, but I think it was because of this sweetness. Also, Scotch doesn't seem to have a sweetness that bourbon has.
So Scotches are also single malt whiskeys.
Mm-hmm.
So same type of process. They're using one malt or one grain, and it's barley. And interestingly enough, it almost sounds counterintuitive, but when it comes to Scotch, single malt Scotches are more complex in the flavor profiles than blended Scotches.
Okay.
You would think blended Scotches, you're taking Scotches from different distilleries, different ages, and you're blending them together. That actually neutralizes a lot of the flavors. A single malt Scotch is way more complex in terms of its flavor.
You said that on last week's show. I remember you said that. We talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, Ray says, 2PD, you guys need to get out more. I mean, I think there's a lot of, Nate, you're basically highlighting some things at a treetop level that obviously everyone's got different opinions of flavor, right? When it comes to it, he even says there's a lot of different Scotches. There are. And there's a lot that goes into it. We're just kind of, the single malt obviously is not, you hear it, like you said, with Scotches more than anything, right? You don't hear it when it comes to whiskeys here in America as much, if barely at all at this point, at least that I've seen. Because again, you got bourbon, you've got like the Texas whiskeys are a big thing now, coming out of there, but they're just the whiskeys and American whiskey, and so like obviously they can't call this bourbon, but everyone, especially at I don't know if you guys have had this conversation with people when someone says they think bourbon and whiskey are two different things.
So
you get that at your store?
I do get that. In fact, tomorrow I'm actually doing a video with the guys at Glass Pour at Carfagna's, where I'm actually going to highlight the differences of like what makes Scotch, Irish, bourbon, Tennessee whiskey, right? Like
nice
Japanese whiskey, even like actually do a brief video that they do and like highlight what makes each of those different. Like,
okay.
What makes a Tennessee whiskey, like what
from Tennessee. I feel like this is like Japanese whiskey comes from
Texas.
Japan, because
Texas. Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah.
You said there's Texas.
Oh no, I thought you were talking about Japanese stuff. Yeah, Japanese.
Yeah, but like
Japan,
a lot of the whiskeys coming out of Japan, they are done in that single malt Scotch style
Fashion, yeah.
But because they're not made in Scotland, they can't be called Scotch. But they make some Japanese whiskeys that are peated. So, but because they come across brighter in their flavor profile. Japanese whiskeys have actually been catching on here in the U.S. as well.
Yeah, they have. Now I'm sipping on. I'm trying to find the flavors here. I know it says it. I didn't read actually what it said on the bottle. I was scanning it on the bottom. They do have their notes on there. So your process there is that the Josh Porter?
You got the whole.
Well, one of the guys I work with got a bottle of this when it came out. So this is brand new to the state of Ohio. It came out on June 30th. Every liquor agency in Ohio that got this bottle had to wait until June 30th, which was the Friday before the 4th, to put it out. So it all went out same day. Carfagna's, we still have a few cases of it. But Freddie No is actually in a store in Upper Arlington autographing bottles.
Nice. So they're trying to make a big push of this.
Yes.
I like it. I'm trying to. It's different. I'm trying to place the flavors. Josh, what do you think of this? You brought the bottle. And we appreciate you bringing the bottle, contributing that.
Tastes like barley.
Tastes like barley.
Mm-hmm. You ever chew barley just off the farm?
Not usually.
Just chew it up a little bit.
No.
Okay.
There are aspects of it where it almost tastes like breakfast cereals, like certain
Cheerios,
Nut Bran.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is that a good thing?
If you like Nut Bran,
Mm-hmm.
if you like fiber,
Grape nuts.
Grape nuts. There it is.
Love it.
Yeah, like oats.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like toasted oats. You know what I mean? It's got a little bit of that.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a spice there, and I don't think it's the heat. What's the proof of this?
94.
94. So it's nothing crazy there as far as that goes, but there's certainly a little bit of a it's like a mintiness at the end.
I see where you're getting kind of, because
it's not like peppermint or anything like that. It's
like the alcohol kind of sits on the back of your palate long after, and that's what gives it that. Yeah, I see where you're getting at. On OHLQ's website, they say the aroma is toasted malt, shocker there, caramel and toffee.
Okay.
And then the taste, vanilla, caramel, and whole grain cereal.
What's it say on the back of the bottle there at the bottom?
Good guess.
Warm toasted grains, hints of caramel.
Thanks, Snake.
You left them hanging on the pound.
Well, because I had to use my hand.
I mean, you can still do
He
it.
saw me. He even said he saw me.
This is awkward. Are you guys gonna fight all night?
Yes.
It sucks.
I think he read it now. I think he read the.
No, I mean I can get that. Like I said, like the oat, not oat brand, but like kind of like a brand cereal.
Yeah.
I don't think that's selling it for a lot of people, honestly. You know what I mean? I don't see that being the way they described it. I think that's better. I mean, when you guys are describing it, and I kind of agree with you. I'm not saying I enjoy this, but it's like when you tell someone, like, it kind of tastes like a bland cereal, which is basically what that is, because you don't add any sugar to it. It's like as we get older, it's fine, but as you're looking for flavor, Cheerios plain is not really the most exciting.
But they're not
dish.
But they know that because it doesn't have the corn, it's not going to have the sweetness that a lot of bourbons are going to have. That's not what they're trying to go for, though. They're trying to squeeze in a little bit of that Scotch market for people who don't like Scotch. That's kind of what that category is going for.
This is going for the Scotch market?
Yeah.
I'll be honest, when I take the first, you kind of went a little different direction from me. When I first hits my palate, I do get a real quick hint of that peaty, smoky flavor right off the get-go, and then it just is gone, or it's very light, basically, and then I get the cereal.
It's like a smokiness?
Right in the beginning.
Huh.
And Ray, if you look up which country consumes the most Scotch, it's us.
Is that based on the only Americans call it Scotch? Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, like Scotch got so big here, I think, in the States that was what it was called because whiskey was really not that popular. Scotch was the fine brown spirit, where like an Irish whiskey, you don't call it Irish. Sometimes you do now. You say, what Irish whiskeys do you have? Because bourbon's gotten so popular. But I mean, this is not I'm not looking for fact checks here, but I mean, it only makes sense to me that Scotch was like the drink. You had brandy, you had Scotch, and then you had like whiskeys in America, though, like were almost, in my opinion, like tarnished because they weren't a finer spirit that you drank neat. Throughout all the stuff we talked about on the show before, where it was kind of like they tried to make it clear, they tried to do all this stuff to it because of the big craze of vodka. They came up with like the old fashions, the Manhattans, stuff coming out of kind of the New York scene and elsewhere. But I mean, those big cocktail mixers, that's what the whiskeys went in. But if you wanted a whiskey neat, you're typically going to be getting a Scotch. So I think I could write that on Wikipedia. I think people would believe it, but that's what makes sense to me, is that there was a certain point that Scotch got defined as a Scotch whiskey, but we call it Scotch, possibly, Ray. And I don't know if you would agree with this, is that from your international perspective, is that it just makes sense when you're ordering. You don't order a whiskey in the 1960s. You order a Scotch or you order a cocktail. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't order a whatever, Jim Beam or Jack Daniels, maybe like Jack and Coke, Jack on the Rocks, sure. But that was, again, you're not asking for whiskey, you're asking for Jack Daniels. Asking for a Scotch, which one? It makes sense to me. I wasn't alive, I don't know. I just think that it's logical in my mind, which is a scary place to be sometimes.
Currently, until the Trade Bureau actually finalizes the rules that most of the distilleries in the U.S. are adhering to, 100% malted barley. It's got to be distilled at one distillery. So you can't blend from different distilleries, kind of like what Barrel Craft does.
Yeah.
So you can't utilize multiple distilleries come together. Mash, distilled, and aged all in the U.S.
Okay.
Makes sense. Distilled no more than 160 proof, which makes sense because anything over 160
makes sense.
Becomes a neutral grain spirit. Bottled at least 80, again, makes sense because that applies to bourbon as well. The one that I think is interesting, matured in oak casks no larger than 700 liters. And before y'all get the calculators out, that's just shy of 185 gallon barrel.
So you have to do a small batch.
So it just says,
saying?
Well, no, it's saying cannot be aged in a barrel larger than that. So you can use, 53-gallon barrels, 25-gallon barrels.
Sure.
You could use 100-gallon barrel, 150-gallon barrel. But yeah, it just can't be more than 185.
Interesting. Do you know what the significance is there?
I don't. The only thing I can think is, so some whiskeys, especially Irish and Scotch, they're aged in either ex-bourbon barrels, which is primarily Irish, but then they also use wine barrels as well. And some of those wine barrels are just absolutely massive. But the bigger the barrel, the less flavor you're getting of the barrel into whatever's in it.
Makes sense.
Because there's too much volume for the surface area.
Okay. Interesting. It's curious how they come up with those rules, or like the regulations when they're coming up with some of this stuff. Sean, do the other way there. Pull up the bottom. That's right. I think. There you go. That's good. That's what I love about our studio here. That's actually my garage. I got a neighbor that's finally doing some weed whacking next door, and I got Sean who's trying to figure out a chair.
You call it quiet on set normally.
Quiet on the set? It's not, though. Maybe
you call
should.
it out before
you were quiet. I did it. Just trying to help out. Got it, man. So, Nate, what do you think of this drink here?
So
I'll take another little pour here, if that's all right.
Yeah, I'll be right after you,
Josh. It's all right.
I mean, I like it. It's definitely something different. I think for someone who's a serious bourbon drinker, they would just consider this like a light bourbon.
I wouldn't think it's a bourbon at all.
No, because it doesn't have as much sweetness. It doesn't have those dark, heavy fruit notes or anything like that. But it still tastes like a whiskey. I think it's, like I said, it's the fastest growing category of whiskey in the U.S. So there's obviously some people that are going to go out and get this, and they want to try different ones. I mean, at our store, we've had several single malt whiskeys come in recently. We've done bottle signings. We've done tastings. It's just something that not enough people in the market understand what it is. But I think if they actually understand what it is and what they're trying to go for, like, they'll appreciate it. So I do like it. I think it's easy to drink. I think it's pretty smooth.
Smooth.
The guy I work with goes, yeah, it tastes like cereal with alcohol.
You know, you got a problem.
When you're pouring your whiskey on your on your Cheerios in the morning.
It's interesting that they're doing this effort. I don't know what you guys think about this, but this is, kind of shooting from the hip here. I think you're in a saturated bourbon world right now, right? And you can only do so many single barrels. You can only do so many barrel picks. You can only do so many new products. You can't necessarily reinvent the wheel. And I think I don't say they're running out, but it's like some of these guys that have been in the game so long, they have ideas. They're doing, and they can come up with small batches that they think taste different from different parts of the rick house and different, mash bills, try some different stuff. But there's such a long process there. I feel like that's a huge gamble, especially when you're trying to pay the bills as well, right? With your core products. Mm-hmm. Jim Beam, I think, is doing all right.
Well, yeah.
Beam Centauri would be doing all right.
Yeah, because 9 years ago they sold for $16 billion.
Yeah. So the fact that they're doing this, I almost feel as though this is maybe in its infancy. I don't think this is an intention to grow as big as the bourbon market. You want to say something? I can tell you.
Go ahead, because I just remembered.
Go ahead. I don't want you to lose it.
So when I said it's owned by Beam Suntory,
sure.
So Suntory is a Japanese whiskey company.
It is.
What kind of Japanese whiskeys do they typically make? They're more in that Scotch, that single malt realm. Well, this isn't a Japanese whiskey, but it's done just like one, but it's the U.S. So it's like, hey, we're going to make the same product we do, but do it in your guys' country, and hopefully y'all buy it.
Well, but you got to think, though, it's also aging in the rick houses here in Kentucky, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
what I'm led to believe here based on the marketing. So, I mean, obviously,
Clermont.
That in Clermont, that's obviously going to be a little bit different as well, right? Just the aging process in the new American oak barrels and all that stuff. So it will taste different. I guess it's the effort here is that does logically make sense what you're saying there, that you have, Japanese influence on this. But I do think that I don't see this making a dent on the bourbon world.
Okay.
I just don't. I think there's something different.
Well, I mean,
it could make a dent if by chance they
well, what do you consider a dent? I mean,
5%.
Okay. It's a big dent. I mean,
5% out of 100?
Well,
it's pretty small.
But I mean, given how much bourbon, we consume in the US,
I agree with that.
Single malt, they would have to, I mean, yeah. I mean, Ohio alone's the 4th largest bourbon market in the country. And we don't have any of the other industries that drive the other 3 states ahead of us.
No, I understand that. Where's the malt coming from? Do we know?
The U.S.
Japan.
That's all we know.
Yeah. Well, I think they're sourcing it in Kentucky.
Okay. Interesting.
So, yeah, most
it's a different effort, right? It's a different effort.
Most aren't going to tell you where they get the grain from.
Well, it's also interesting, too, to me that barley is usually in the minority of what the ingredients are, right? So when you look at a mash bill, usually barley is one of the smaller, if not the smallest percentage in most mash bills.
Like in bourbon, yeah, usually
in bourbons, yes.
Yeah, usually
yes.
in bourbons, you're looking at typically between 5 to 10%, maybe a little bit more. But yeah.
So this will definitely hit you differently than most whiskeys that you're used to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is...
The flavor is going to come across a little bit grainy.
Certainly. It's weird. I think it's good, but it's like I also at the same, like on like the flip side, it's almost like I got that devil and angel on me, right? And it's like on the other side, I'm like, it's like, what is this? Like, why, you know what I mean? Like what? Because the cereal, all this stuff, like it's good, but it's throwing me off a little bit.
There's nothing bad about it though. Either.
There's nothing bad about it, but at the same time, I'm like, and once it's weird, like I'm trying to make up my mind here. It's like, I think it's like like, oh yeah, I get another bottle of this, and I take another sip. I'm like, what? No, I wouldn't drink this. You know what I mean? Like it's super weird. It's not offensive. It's not, but it is like the more you talk about like that, and they even say it on there. What was it? The toasted malt, toasted. The notes on the bottom of their bottle.
Oh, warm toasted grain, hints of caramel.
Yeah, you're telling me it just tastes like warm grain, and I think it's accurate.
Yeah,
but at the same time, it's like the cereal comment. You know, it's like you're drinking Cheerios or like drinking like your boss. You know, your
grape nut flakes.
Yeah. As a
Hey,
kid, you're like,
yeah.
I'm not eating grandma's cereal. Like that's all we
Oh,
have.
it wasn't my boss that said. And no,
Right.
it was
Someone at the
Yeah.
shop there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's this is a different one. I think it's definitely worth trying. I think this is we'll get to the ratings on it. It's good. It's easy drinking, right? I mean, it's not
Mhm.
too strong.
Yeah, he's drinking.
It's in the state of
It's
Ohio.
enjoyable.
In the state of Ohio, this is $59.99.
65, I thought.
$59.99
Right.
MSRP. 65 if you include sales tax in there.
Oh, okay. I got you. Someone sent it to me. I thought it said 64, but yeah. So it's $60. Call it right.
Yeah.
$60 for the bottle. What do you think?
But
You're the one that bought the bottle, Josh. Would you buy this again?
He also told me to buy it.
I know, but I'm saying, but you spent, like we appreciate it. You're getting some cigars
There
out
was
of it,
another-
right?
yeah.
But it's like, would you?
I like it.
You would?
Yeah.
Would you buy another bottle?
I think I would.
Okay.
For maybe not the winter months, but like summertime.
Summer, fall,
It's like, yeah, summer.
taking
fall.
on a hayride.
Take it on, drinking in the backyard, wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
don't go anywhere. Sit there and drink it.
Well, drive while you're doing it.
That's right.
All right, tonight we'll switch gears here. We are smoking the Crowned Heads Azul y Oro, and this is a limited edition. I want to pull this information up just so I don't get it wrong. This is coming from Crowned Heads, which we've had plenty of stuff on. Jake Sanders, who started the podcast with me years ago, when actually Josh was on originally, 5 years ago, 5+ years ago. He works for Crowned Heads. They're all coming back from the Vegas trade show, PCA, Premium Cigar Association trade show, which is for retailers where they announce a lot of the new stuff. But Crowned Heads was working with the company Pichardo and Luciano. Like there's stuff going on still there. This is the second cigar that they made at the Naxa factory in Esteli. So the Nicaraguan American cigars factory there. And that's, I think, owned by Oliva or partly owned by Oliva Cigar. And or Oliva Tobacco, excuse me, not cigar, but Oliva Tobacco Company, which is different. But this is something that it has pretty, I'd say, basic as far as the build of it. You've got the Ecuadorian Habano wrapper on there. You've got a Dominican, a Nicaraguan binder, jalapa binder, and then you have 3 Nicaragua regions and a Dominican filler. So Ecuadorian Habano, mostly Nicaraguan underneath, and a little bit of Dominican, basically, is what you're smoking here. And this is a limited production of only 2,500 boxes. And so, like, that's what I was saying at the beginning of the podcast, is that you really won't be able to find this most places. If you do, smoke it. If you like it, grab it. I don't necessarily see this one being a regular production. The first one that they compare this to, the first one that they actually made in the Naxa factory, Crowned Heads, was the regular production version of the Le Patissier.
Oh.
Where originally that was out of the Pichardo factory, and then when they went full production, they went through the Naxa factory. This one comes in one size. This is going to be a 6x50. You see the box. I'll take it off the screen here, that banner. It is a beautiful box. It is an ode to Johnny Walker Blue. If you look at the marketing there, and there's a story here, is that when the Crowned Heads founders, Mike Condor and John Huber, traveled to meet Gustavo of Oliva Tobacco Company, they gifted him a bottle of his favorite whiskey, which is Johnny Walker Blue. In Spanish, Azul y Oro is blue and gold. So they got the whole blue and gold. Very simple. The box is very cool. It's a box of 12. It is a single layer, 6 and 6, kind of facing each other. It's a slide top box there. A little bit, it stands out obviously a bit just because of the size there. You've got 6 going down one side, 6 going down the other, and they kind of face each other at the foot. And you've just got a simple blue band on there, blue ribbon for the band. and then they have the Crowned Heads Gold. So they follow the whole idea of the blue and gold, right? I mean, you got the blue band, the gold foot band, if you will, to say Crowned Heads on there, but it's a very unassuming package when, you know, for example, at certain shops like Tinderbox at Easton, we put them in bins.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So you figure with this box in a walk-in humidor, it's tough to do something with it, you know? I don't know.
Would you lay it sideways? Could you lay it front to, you know, going back?
It's interesting that they do this because it's either very, very demanding because it takes up a box and a half normal size, right? Or even 2 boxes worth.
Mm-hmm.
If you do it that way. If you can lean it the other way on your walk-in humidor, you've got the cigars facing down and then the other ones, you know, like this. So you're basically, you know, you're like, can't see it. You're like this or you're like that. I don't know what people did with the walk-ins on the shelf. And then at that point, you lose this whole box. The whole box, like
the lid. Because there's no groove in the box for the lid to sit in.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see. I mean, it's a beautiful box. I think it's great. The detail on the lid is where all the action is, right? You got Crowned Heads made in Nicaragua, 12 cigars. The size is right there. Azul y Oro. I mean, I think it's beautiful.
Nice.
But it's what do you do? What do you do with it afterwards?
I smoked about half of mine down to where yours is right now.
Well, yeah, I was doing some talking. I was chatting. What do you think of it?
It's Ryan said earlier that when we were on the show last week, and I don't like to say it a lot either, but he mentioned it. He said he likes the Cuban seed, and I don't like to tell people that because I feel like I'm just being a cigar cliche kind of guy, but
Cuban seed or Cuban-esque? What do you mean?
Cuban, I like Cuban cigars.
Okay.
There are some bad ones, probably. There are some bad ones. But I like would you say that's the seed or the?
Well, so most of it is going to be Cuban seed origin. Mm-hmm. Most of it. You think this smokes similar to a Cuban?
No, I was just prefacing that with.
I got you.
My flavor profile that I enjoy the most.
Okay. Kind of frame this.
Yeah, but this cigar is very smooth to me, which is that kind of nuttiness, that easy to smoke kind of feel.
Yeah.
With no bitterness, it's just, I like it.
Yeah, it's smooth. Nate, medium bodied. What do you think?
So, yeah, medium. So I know I smoked these when they first came into the tinderbox. I smoked a couple of them and then went away from it because there's quite a few Crowned Head cigars that I really enjoy. This one just didn't quite hit enough. Like, there's flavor, but there's not an abundance of flavor. Like, it's not a really strong, bold, flavorful cigar. Because there's difference between, I'm not talking about the strength of the cigar itself, I'm talking about the strength of the flavor. It's like, all right, here's almost like this whiskey. Like, there's flavor, but the flavor is kind of toned down a little bit. They're not going for something that's just, bold flavor, coat your palate type of thing. Mm-hmm. This is, a medium body. This is definitely a cigar I think works best as a first cigar of the day. Or at least early on, after a Connecticut maybe, but not after something else, just because it's one of those where the flavor that is there, because none of the flavors are bold and stand out, you kind of got to pay attention really and focus on the cigar and what actually is there.
And that's because good thing, bad thing. What do you mean? Like, what do you think about that?
So
I'd call it more of a subtle and delicate blend.
Yeah, if I'm sitting on my back patio, not doing a damn thing, like, this is a cigar for that. It's not a cigar for when I'm working in the shop because I got too much other stuff going on. This cigar is not going to jump out at me. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other cigars that I'll smoke at the shop when I'm working because I know that flavor is going to smack me in the mouth every single time.
Yeah.
And if I'm not paying attention to the cigar, I want the cigar to get my attention. This one doesn't grab my attention.
Okay. What do you think of the way it finishes
What do you mean?
on the palate?
So there's no spice on the palate, but there definitely is through the nose.
Okay.
The finish is very short, I believe, very abrupt. It hits and then it just goes away. There's not a lasting flavor profile.
To me, that sounds like something that's aged a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with all that. I think that's what I was kind of saying as well. There's just that. It's really easy to smoke. It's smooth in that way.
I'm just, as you guys are talking, I'm thinking, and then I still have the information I pulled up. This is from halfwheel.com. Great website. They're
Did
very
they lay into them?
No, they're very sure of themselves at
Well.
halfwheel.com. As if you're in the cigar industry, you know that, for better or worse. I'm not saying it's a good thing or bad thing. Some of their flavor notes are
Oh, let's get after it.
a little ridiculous.
Let's do it.
No, for me though, I think this is a more delicate blend. So when this first came out, and I think Crowned Heads is great at what they do, I'm enjoying this one more than my first one. I think I've maybe smoked 3 or 4 of these, maybe 3 to 5. I think when Jake Sanders was in town, he had a couple of them, and he handed them out as samples to the employees. Smoked them when I first came out. And I think when they first came in, they were sitting on the shelf. We've had these for a little while, which is one of the reasons why we're doing it tonight, because we're down to our last box, like 10 or so, a little less than a box, I think. So not many left, but so we're like, we haven't done this, might as well feature it in case they do come out as regular production, something like that, or if you find them locally. Did I have it backwards?
It was upside down.
That's fine.
I got a text.
How can they even see it? Anyways,
my wife,
all right. But I think this is actually aged better in the humidor. Not to be that guy, but I think the fact that it sat for a little while longer, I think that it's balanced out. I think initially when I smoked it, it was a little abrupt. It was a little brash. It was a little bit. The finish was a little more bitter.
Really?
And I'm not getting that as much tonight. That's what I was asking you guys.
Oh, from the first time you had it.
From the first time I
gotcha,
had it.
gotcha.
Now I feel like it's kind of mellowed out a little bit. And I agree with what you're saying, Nate, is I think that this does have, in my words, would be, like I said, a little bit more of a delicate blend as far as flavor profile. It is nice to have a cigar that you can sit down, and kind of focus on the cigar, really give it its due, as opposed to just smoking it while you do other things. So again, I don't know if that's what I was asking. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? And I think you described it very well, Nate, is that it depends on what you're doing. But I do think that this is a nice cigar to be able to sit down with. I'm not saying first of the day, like you said. I mean, this can be at the end of the night. I wouldn't necessarily. I'm glad we're drinking the Clermont Steep, because it's not an overpowering flavor. Mm-hmm. I think if we had a very cinnamony or very high proof something that we're drinking with this cigar, the cigar would be completely lost, and you wouldn't really get much out of it. And I think it would not get its fair shake. I think it's getting its fair shake with the Clermont Steep, for sure. But I get trying to place the flavors of this, but I think they're very pleasant. There's a little bit of a what is that? It's not like sweet, but like some sort of like a syrupy sweet, like on my palate.
Like pancake syrup?
No,
or
it's not maple.
Whiskey.
No. There's like a little salty sweetness, something. There's something like a food.
I get the saltiness.
You get the saltiness?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of like some sort of food I'm searching for on this, but it's, and Ryan says sweet spice. He says they can see syrup. Like I said, it's not like maple syrup, but there's some sort of a sugariness to it. Like a sugary syrup. He's saying, what do you say?
Like if you put
sweet spice.
Like if you put like a little bit of vanilla extract in with your, what's the clear colorless syrup that you use in baking.
Oh yeah.
I know what you're talking about. I'm not sure, but yeah, something like that. There's like a hint of like the vanilla sweetness in there, and then there is like a little bit of spice. It gets a little bit more in the
There's
nose.
the vanilla sweetness, but not the like sugar bomb sweetness.
No. It's enjoyable. I still think the finish on this is a little bit
Cairo syrup.
Caro syrup. I think it's a little bit bitter, just slight bitterness on my finish.
Okay.
You're not getting that?
I am towards the end now because I'm a little
Okay.
bit further down the path
Yeah.
than you are, but yeah, I am starting to.
Just a little dryness there. But I do like the cigar. It's a pleasant cigar. This has not been my favorite release from Crowned Heads by any means in limited edition stuff. But again, they can't be all 100%, right? They
when
can't
you
all be 10s.
When you told me this was where this was made, what factory, and what other cigar that factory produces for Crown Heads, I got a little worried because that other cigar that you had mentioned,
Yeah.
I have yet to have one that didn't have construction problems.
Sorry.
This one, like I've smoked several of them. I don't recall having any construction issues. It's just the flavor is so delicate, as you put it, that it's like, okay, like, you know, when you smoke a cigar, you know, you get new cigar smokers coming into the shop all the time, and especially if they're former cigarette smokers or current cigarette smokers, you're like, you know, you got to remember, don't inhale. Cigars are about the flavor. There's no taste buds in your lungs. Well, if cigars are all about the flavor, it's like, and you know, companies come out with a cigar that's just kind of delicate and easy on the flavor.
Yeah.
It almost makes you sit there and go, well, if it's about the flavor, then what's the point if it doesn't have an abundance of flavor?
Sure. I get that. I was going to get to this, and I don't know what you guys think. We talked about the box. Ryan says, and Ryan, it's funny because if you were here, I'd be right there with you when we talk about this. When we look, I wish they did more with the band. Love the box and the theme. Crowned Heads has a lot of limited edition stuff, including some regional releases, like the Tennessee Waltz, like the Yellow Rose, where they
The former Buckeye Land.
Buckeye Land is one where they put the band, like this same exact looking ribbon, just a different color. They put it on the foot of the cigar, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, I remember for the Buckeye Land, the last time the Tinderbox had the Buckeye Land, the owner, Brian, would always have to turn the cigar upside down so that way on the barcode you could see what the actual cigar was.
My point is that I can appreciate they're starting to put that gold Crowned Heads footband. Yeah, this guy to have a little bit of uniformity on that. I almost feel like
a lot of their.
And Ryan, I don't know if you're still listening. If they flip that, put the Crowned Heads as the primary band, and then put the blue on the bottom, I think that would have been a better dressing on this cigar. And you could do that with the Yellow Rose. You could do that with the Tennessee Waltz. You could do that if they do the Buckeye Land again. Is that you switch it up and just have Crowned Heads, the gold, as your primary band, and then the distinction is with the blue ribbon on the foot. I think that would look a little bit better. It would be a little bit more approachable for people with, when you're looking at cigars on there. It sounds stupid for those that listen to this more for the whiskey or part two. I think it's confusing to the mind if you're shopping for cigars and you see this the way it's laid out with the blue ribbon up top, which is normally used for the foot band.
Especially because it's that same nylon type ribbon.
Yeah, so it almost looks like, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look as presentable to me. I think it's like they tried something here. You put the footband in the middle of the cigar and you put what would normally be, which is now a lot of their footbands. So that's, I guess, what they're doing again, that uniform look across there as far as the foot. But you put the footband in the middle of the cigar and you put the printed band on the bottom of the cigar. Like that's backwards. Yeah, it looks like a one-off. And Ryan says he agrees. Appreciate that, Ryan. There's something there. It just throws me off. And I think it throws off consumers too. They look at it and they're like, well, this, wait, which way do you smoke?
They may have done.
It looks cheaper or like a.
I'm having a blue baby band.
Yeah, they may have done it that way because, head to toe, that's how the colors are laid out in the name as well. Azul Oro.
Yeah,
blue,
could be.
gold.
I'm not saying it looks bad. we're nitpicking.
It's just
here,
different. It just goes backwards from the other stuff that they've done.
And what everyone else does.
Yeah.
Look at the My Father line, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
They have this primary, they have a secondary, and then they have a foot ribbon. Like
black, blue, orange.
Ribbons are
peach,
used on the foot of a
green.
cigar. La Roma de Cuba. A lot of different cigars will use a ribbon on the bottom, not only for a nice, inexpensive accent piece,
protects it,
but it also protects the foot.
Yeah.
We did that with the BS Silver when we were doing that. The Rubito, we put that little silver foot ribbon on there. We were going to do a secondary band, but that just takes too long. So they literally just we can put ribbon on it, and it's been humidor so long it's got a yellow a little bit to it.
Yeah, yellow cello on those BS Silver Rubitos.
Almost out. That's a pepper bomb right there.
I also have the limited edition silver with me.
Yeah, we still got those. Yeah, those are smoking nice.
Yes, they are. That surprised me, honestly.
The Ecuadorian Habano wrapper on this is gorgeous.
Yes.
I think this is where, and Ryan, I think, again, we came into the business, the industry of cigars around the same time. I was a hair before him, but I think also he learned a lot at the Tinderbox East, and that's kind of how you get, and he's gone off on his own with Royale. If you guys listened, last week's episode is great, but I think we have similar kind of a mindset when it comes to this. I feel like that blue ribbon in the middle, for whatever reason, it trips me up. It takes away from this gorgeous Ecuadorian Habano wrapper. The color's gorgeous. There's a little bit of toothiness to it. It's also at the same time, there's a little bit of veins on the leaf, but I mean, it's a pretty smooth looking wrapper.
Yeah.
It's almost like you kind of fucked it up a little bit with the presentation.
Yeah.
It didn't ruin it.
No.
And again, I mean, if John Huber tunes in, he's like, "Are you fucking serious?" He wouldn't care, but I just think that it's off. It throws me off a little bit because that is a beautiful, beautiful.
And I had heard
beautiful cigar.
I had gotten the rundown on the blend like you talked about before I smoked one. And that's probably what also led to me thinking that this cigar was going to have a little bit more punch to it than it actually does. Because, we've got plenty of cigars at the Tinderbox that have that Ecuadorian Habano wrapper on it. And then you got Nicaraguan binder, 3 Nicaraguan fillers from 3 different regions. And then you have that little Dominican thrown in there. But this doesn't necessarily have the spice that you would expect something that had that much Nicaraguan tobacco in it. And, there are other cigars that I know we have at the Tinderbox that have the same type of wrapper, Ecuadorian Habano, and then all Nicaraguan, and they punch harder.
Yeah.
From my perspective, you guys are in the cigar shop way too much. You guys, you see these.
That's supposed to mean.
Yeah, well, you criticize everything, which is good for you guys, which is your job. But if I were to walk in the shop and you told me this was a good cigar and it just had that blue, but you told me it was a good cigar and it it was a good cigar, because you told me that because you really believed it.
For some medium, it's a good cigar. Yeah,
that wouldn't affect me one bit.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
So,
no, we are nitpicking. We're looking for stuff here on this one. And think about this: they only released 30,000 cigars.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that big of a run for a limited edition. So you look at that also, 30,000, especially with their band makers, depending on, this came out, it was post-COVID. So, things were still a little slow on that side of things. I can also see what they did here. Again, knowing Crowned Heads, again, being nitpicky, I feel like they could have just put the blue on the foot ribbon and kept with some of the theme that people are they recognize, like the Yellow Rose and the Tennessee Waltz. Keep it that blue down there. But then I could also, again, I'm talking in circles here, because they could also be like, "Oh, what state is this from?" You know what I mean? Because now you're confusing people. Like, "Oh, is this a state by state? What state are we doing here?" So again,
California.
whatever. Come on.
Oh no, that'd be a brown band. Never mind.
You could smoke in what?
Certainly blue.
Two cities maybe there.
Certainly blue. Mine is non-existent. Oh, we don't have one. I assume that's what Bobby's saying. All right, let's get to the pairing, unless you guys want to talk about the cigar more and say what's wrong with the way they marketed it, since we're obviously geniuses on that.
I clearly enjoyed it. So
I enjoy it too. Like I said, we're nitpicking. I mean, this is just, it's sometimes what we do.
What's this cigar sell for?
12.
Okay.
Yeah, $12 is the MSRP on that. So average price for a limited edition cigar, Josh makes a great point. Shut us all up. Absolutely. Ray says, I'm over the conversation on the band. All right. What band? It's a ribbon.
It's
Never
a
mind.
ribbon. You get a blue ribbon. First place.
Hey,
First place,
got a blue ribbon
Crownheads.
for you right here. This is where we do the rating part one. We round out part one with the rating. So we're gonna rate the Clermont Steep from Beam Story, and we are going to rate the cigar, which is the Azul y Oro, and then the pairing. And so we do 3 ratings. 10 is the best. You rate the whiskey, you rate the cigar, and then you rate the pairing. So, Sean, you want to get involved in this? Our live studio audience here, working on a way to get a camera on you too. So.
Oh boy.
I wonder who you can talk to.
That'd be cool. I would say the bourbon's growing on me. Is it bourbon or whiskey?
It's
Sorry.
whiskey. It's a
Whiskey.
single
Sorry.
malt whiskey.
Kentucky.
Sorry. Okay.
American.
It's growing on me. It's the first one I've had in a while where it's like not super sweet at all, but I don't mind that. It's nice to have like a change up a little bit. First couple sips were like I was waiting for it and it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of hug at the end, but now that I'm drinking more, there's no more. So I'm actually enjoying it as I keep drinking it. I was going to give it a 7.5 off the bat, but I'm bumping up to an 8. The cigar is, I like it. It's got some earthy tones to it. The retrohale has a little bit of spice, but just enough to really not make you sneeze and enjoy the flavor that it presents. I'm going to give that a 8.5. And then the pairing, they're kind of similar just because there's like the earthy tones of the cigar and not the sweetness. There's not really much of a contrast, but I don't mind that. Usually it's like sweet and then it's spicy or whatever. These are both kind of on the non-sweet side, and I really enjoy the pairing. I'll give it an 8.5 as well.
Okay. Josh Porter.
Wait, whiskey first?
Yes.
Just like it says on the screen, whiskey, cigar, and the pairing.
Whiskey, cigars.
I'll blow it up here for you.
I enjoyed the whiskey. I think on a hot summer day, it's really nice to have this.
How is it with that cube?
I tried it with the cube. You know what? It was probably better without the cube in it.
Water it down.
Yeah. So no, I normally put about 1 cube in my bourbon at home, but I don't think you need that with this.
No.
Even if it's hot outside. But I think the whiskey's. I would still give it a 9.
You give it a 9?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
How about the cigar, the Azul y Oro from Crowned Heads?
Yeah. Well, you can see my palate is either I have a little bit more sensitive palate than you guys.
Yeah. Why do you say that?
Well, I do have a cigar probably about once or even sometimes 2 a day.
Mm-hmm.
But my palate, I don't know. I enjoy like lager beers. I don't need a heavy Guinness. I don't enjoy it. So there's just things like that. I can appreciate sometimes not having a full body cigar. I really do. So this, I can really appreciate the whiskey. Like I said, I can give it a 9. Are we jumping on? Or
The cigar.
Just the cigar. Okay, go to the cigar. And the cigar is a lot of the ways the same what everybody else is saying. It's smooth. It's easy to smoke it without too much over flavor, and it just seems smooth to me. So for me, the two together, when they go to, I would say the cigar first off I would probably give the cigar 8.
Okay. 9 on the whiskey, 8 on the cigar. How about the pairing?
The pairing, I think actually they go really well together. So 9.
Okay. 9, 8, 9. Nate?
So on the whiskey, I'm a 7 on the whiskey. I think it's good. I understand what they're trying to go for. I think, with the rise in popularity of American single malts, like I said, it is the fastest growing division of whiskey in this country. And I think that's because I think there's a lot of whiskey drinkers, primarily bourbon drinkers, that are starting to get a little tired of either bourbon or like the hunt and chase for certain bottles.
Over it.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Over it.
Yeah. When you get asked for the same 4 products 40 times a day, you get over it.
I don't even work. Yeah. I don't work.
Yeah.
there,
You
but
get
I'm
over real. I had a guy come in the other day and he looked at the entire wall of American whiskey that we have. He goes, you got any good bourbons? And I went, yeah, that back wall. He goes, no, the good ones. I went, yeah, back wall.
It sounds like something they would say.
Yo,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
I'm learning
And-
that quickly.
Yeah.
And the guy that does all the liquor ordering,
We
he
had to
goes,
coach him a little bit at the tinderbox.
yeah, the guy that does all the liquor ordering at the store, he's like, yeah, same thing. Do it. Like sometimes, yeah, you kind of feel like a dick, but there are the customers where you're like, yeah, that's the appropriate way to handle
Did you
it.
ask him what he meant?
Oh, I knew what he meant.
Did you ask
He
him?
meant anything allocated.
Right. Did you ask him?
No, because I knew what he meant.
So what was the conversation after that?
He walked out.
That was it?
Yeah. Because we didn't have, all he wanted was anything from Buffalo Trace. That's all he was looking for.
But he didn't say that.
No, but that's exactly what he meant.
Okay.
Anytime I get that question, you guys got any good bourbons? They're always asking for something allocated. So it's always
Yeah.
Weller, Buffalo Trace, Blanton's, E.H. Taylor. Yeah.
Huh.
That's what they mean when they say that.
I'd ask him like good how? What are you looking for? Make him say it.
I get in, but yeah, I knew what he meant. Everyone that worked there knew exactly what he meant. But no, I think this is enjoyable. It's an easy drinker. It's a different flavor profile. And like I said, this is meant to be a whiskey for people who already drink American whiskey or bourbon, but they don't like Scotch. This is something like this is supposed to be kind of that stepping stone towards a single malt Scotch.
Really?
I think that's what they're trying to get at with this is go after get some of that crowd, with that, liking that sort of flavor profile, just without buying the Scotch.
Yeah. Okay. How about the cigar?
Cigar 7 as well.
Wow.
I mean, it's
Russian Judge is back, everyone.
I haven't. When was the last time I went below a 7 on anything?
I'm gonna outdo him next time. Everything's a 4.
And Nate, what do you got? 4.2.
But no, the cigar's good. It just doesn't, stand out.
Bobby Crow says, so everyone wants you to know how. Go visit Nate Hale and ask him the same old questions. So he answers. It's a good test.
So we actually thought about making T-shirts at Carfagna's that actually say on the front, allocated drop Saturday, no E.H. Taylor, no Blanton's, no Buffalo Trace, no Weller.
Whose
Except
idea?
you guys get that.
Oh yeah, or put signs up. Yeah. Like I said, because we get asked that question every single day, 40 times a day.
Yeah.
And then we also get the one where we get people trying to be sneaky, where they will tell you that they don't know anything about bourbon, or they act like they're not a bourbon drinker, thinking that we're hiding this stuff from them. And that we want to try and sell it to people who haven't had it. Like, or they send their wives in because they think we'll be more inclined to sell it to a woman than we, are one of the bourbon bunnies.
Sneaky.
They try. It's like, no, it's all gone on Saturday. Everything's gone Saturday. Oh yeah, but then we could actually just sit there and just point at the shirt and be like,
I feel like everyone's getting crass on both sides of the equation now, the retailers and the consumers.
And then as far as the pairing, I actually give the pairing an 8.
7, 7, 8.
Yes, like Sean said, I don't think they necessarily enhance one another, but they're not taking away from either one as well. And both kind of have a little bit of nuttiness to them that does pair well together.
Yeah.
I think the pairing is better than the two as an individual.
I'm changing 889 on the. See, if I came in and asked the cigar shop and I said, I want a Cuban-esque cigar, would you give me attitude?
Depends on my mood, but probably, I don't know, not anymore. I mean, because I kind of, I'll comment on that real quick. The cigar side of that is, you got any Opus? You got any Liga Privada? You got any Andalusian Bulls? You got any of that? Like the same kind of questions.
You got any Cubans?
Cubans is one thing. That's just like, no, you don't. Like, I mean, that's like, I don't know. I can't even equate that to the bourbon thing. You know what I mean? It's like they're not even allowed to be sold here.
Yeah.
So it's different. But you get that question a lot. But I mean, as far as like the allocated stuff, hey, you got any, like, I had a guy come in the other day looking for the Fuente Rare Pinks, and you're like, you can laugh at them. You can be like, no, of course. It's like
we
no,
had it for a month.
So you would answer that differently in a cigar shop than I feel like. And I get what you're saying, but you get asked for like the Opus. Sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
The cigar industry is way further on than the bourbon market. And I think the bourbon, it's like, we've already been there on the cigar side. Like, this whole like novelty shit that's going on with the bourbon thing, I think it's great. It's passing, thankfully. Hopefully the secondary market will slow down a little bit so that it will regulate a little bit. Not great for the people that, hopefully these expansions like at Buffalo Trace and other places will actually produce more product a few years down the road. That's the hope here, right? The whole thing you're talking about, Nate, like on the cigar side of it, we still get those guys. You have any Andalusian bulls? It's like, no, we don't. We have 10 boxes on back order constantly. 5 come in, we order 5 more. They're gone within a couple weeks. But there are the people that do ask, and sometimes we do have it, like the Opus X stuff, the rare stuff from Fuente, the Liga Privadas, the Unicos stuff from Drew Estate. You have some of that stuff, but I'm not saying you guys are doing anything wrong, but I think it's now becoming both sides. This is my one real editorial piece here, is that it's becoming both sides. On the bourbon side, it's like there's an elitist attitude from both sides, and I think it's making the situation not pleasant. Because for what you're saying there, Nate, I do want to comment. There are some ignorant people. There are some women that go in there and they literally
yes,
doing this, and people that know. I'll get asked like, hey, I have a friend that really has been wanting a bottle of like Pappy Van Winkle. Is there anyone you could get it? I mean, how much is it? Like they clearly don't know, or a Blanton's, basic stuff like that. I think we're and I'll get off my soapbox. We're at a slippery slope, and nothing you said is wrong. I mean, I get where you're coming from, Nate, and I get where the retailers are coming from, because there are a lot of, and I've seen them in the liquor stores. They're a bunch of assholes that feel entitled to this stuff because they are literally wasting 40 hours a week standing in lines.
Yeah.
I get it. That's what I'm saying. There's this whole like entitlement or elitist mentality on both sides, and I think that needs to stop on both sides. Do you have any good bourbons? What are you looking for? Make them say it. You know what I mean? It's like, they look at the wall in the tinderbox. You got any good cigars? It's like, nope. Like, what are you looking for? Like, if you don't like these 500 options, what are you looking for? Like Opus X, the Forbidden X, the
Lost City.
Yeah, like all that stuff. It's like, oh, you're looking for, no, we don't actually have those in stock right now, okay.
Well, like you said about the Andalusian Bull, I recently did have a customer come in and ask for that cigar, and I explained that whole thing. Like, it's constantly on back order. When we do get it, they do go pretty quick, even though we limit to, a couple cigars a person.
I guess my point is, if I come in and I ask you, like, hey, I got to ask something, like, do you have any, like, EHO? Do you have any, you know what I mean? Especially out of state people, they don't know.
So if I had
a retailer just like laugh in my face and be like, you know what, fuck you, pal, I'm not buying anything here. I was just fucking asking a question. You know what I mean? Like we got to watch that in the cigar industry and the whiskey industry. So I think we do on both sides.
I did have that come up Saturday where there was a couple from out of state, and they're like, yeah, my son wants me to look for these bottles.
Bingo.
And I was like, so every single one of those bottles that you just showed me a picture of, they're lottery bottles in the state of Ohio. So they go out once a year and you have to enter the lottery. Like that's the only way you can get it. You won't find these on a shelf anywhere in Ohio.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
But like, had that customer come in asking for Andalusian Bulls, and I explained it to him just like you did with constant back order. They go quick, but also said, if you really are looking for it, I know one place that has them. They limit you to one, and they charge $40. So
there's a reason they have them.
Yeah, if you want to go pay $40 for a $25 cigar, go for it.
So whiskey, the Clermont Steep, going back to my ratings here. The American single malt, this is new to me. So I saw we had Aaron Harris was listening, and he said it's hard to impress
the best.
It's hard to impress bourbon drinkers with American single malt. It's not Scotch. That being said, he said Greg with Watershed has some monster American single malt sitting in his vault. So it'll be interesting to see. We might see something locally coming out of Columbus, Ohio, with a Watershed release of something here. So that'll be interesting. Thank you very much, Aaron, for giving us a little bit of the inside track there to look out for.
Yeah, Aaron had made a couple comments, and Aaron being the master distiller of a distillery, like I'd ask them, like, hey, what are your opinions? So
Yeah,
look back to the
absolutely. So what I'm saying here, this is new to me, just like I'm sure it is to a lot of the people that are listening that might grab this bottle. Yeah, 7.5. This is for me, it's one dimensional, and it makes sense, right? It's drinking it and then learning about it, or doing it at the same time, like we're doing on the show. But if you guys are listening to this and then you come across this bottle, I encourage you to maybe try it. $60 to buy it. Up to you. If you're looking for something new, yes, absolutely. This is not one that I'd keep on my bar, stocked at all times. But it is something that if you see it at a bar, maybe ask for a pour, like get a drink, see what you think of it. It is a little bit one dimensional, and it makes sense being, obviously 100% one grain. And even their tasting notes is toasted grains or toasted grain. And then you said that it's that one level char for 5 years. I don't know what to expect. Are we looking for complexity here? Are we, this is it's a nice flavor, but it's just really
lighter.
It's just really, for me, it's not something that I'm like, oh man, what I really feel like is a pour of Clermont Steep. That's where I'm at a 7.5 there. It'll be interesting to see what this market does with this after all this talk, and then hearing someone like Aaron Harris say that, seeing what they do with this American single malt market, because I think you can get some more complexity. I think you'll see more stuff coming out on that. And I don't know what the supply is on barley here in America. The fact that they're doing 100% barley, I don't know if that's actually an expense or not. Not an expense, since they don't use it in a lot of things as far as mash bill. It's
like I said earlier, it's usually only 5 to 10%.
Right. So the cigar, I'll give it an 8. I think this is a nice cigar. It's like I said, it's medium. It's got some nice flavor. It's more of a delicate blend. I think this is something that could get overpowered really easy. Something I think that was actually about the whiskey here. I do want to answer this. I think it was from Aaron Harris as well about, would you drink this with a nice filet? I would drink it as a maybe before dinner.
Yes.
This is like, I normally go with like a cocktail or something like that at a steak, before steak, do that, have a cocktail. This would be something that if someone was looking for, I just want to pour whiskey, and we hadn't eaten yet, everyone just showed up to dinner or whatever, like, hey, try this, let's have this before dinner. This is a nice fresh palate type thing,
Also not going to wreck your palate.
Yeah, so you're going to walk into dinner with this, but I wouldn't necessarily say this is an after dinner or even a sipper during a nice, very flavorful meal.
Yeah, grilled beef is going to overpower.
Kind of same thing with a cigar. This combination. So what is it? At 8, I think the cigar, and I'll give the pairing. I'll give it an 8, 8.5. They do go well together. This is based on the context of what I was just talking about with what Aaron Harris had said. This is something that if you're having people over for dinner, you're grilling out, whatever, or you go to a steakhouse where you want to have a cigar beforehand, you know what I mean? Like kind of like a happy hour, and then you're going to have dinner. This is a great pairing for pre-dinner.
Pre-game.
Yeah, it's not going to ruin your palate. It's pleasant. It kind of gets the evening going, you know what I mean? They are very flavorful. Whether or not you like the flavors is up to you, but I mean, they're very easygoing, and they both are very pleasant. They're not overpowering, you know what I mean? Like it's not you don't have to necessarily focus on either of them. You're just enjoying a cigar and whiskey. It's not saying they're basic, but it is that basic and that essence of, I'm after work. You want to get together after work and chat about, let's have a drink and a cigar. This is great. This is an after work thing. This is a happy hour pairing. So trying to see if I missed anything here. No.
It depends on what they also sell it at the bar for.
It does, yeah. And again, coming at $60, if they're typical bar prices, this could be, a $15 pour, $17 pour if it's a $60 bottle, but it's not very in demand, so they probably keep it pretty 15, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say somewhere in that 10 to 15 range.
Because your average drinker, they wouldn't know what it is. Not saying you're enthusiast, but your average drinker, and they see Clermont Steep, and if it's one of those menus that actually, if they do the menus and it says, Beam Some Story or Jim Beam or James Beam underneath it, it might throw people off. You don't know. That doesn't really have that power. unless you're a bourbon enthusiast and you're drinking like the Bookers and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, what's Clermont Steep? That's new. Oh, it's from Beam. Oh, I got to try that. So that being said, round out part one. We'll take a quick intermission. We'll stay live on the live feed. If you're listening to the podcast apps, click over to part two. We're going to talk to Josh Porter about what he does and how it can apply to you guys. Cheers, guys. Happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Cheers.
There you go. There we go. That's nice. That's nice. Clear on part one. Still live.
So
Appreciate all the comments, everyone out there. We've had double-digit viewers the entire time. Remind you guys to share it, like it, review it, give us some feedback. Share it on your Facebook feeds. If you got the YouTube link, we're on YouTube live right now, go ahead and if you want to copy that link and shoot it out to people that you think that might enjoy it. Share it on all your social media. Get this conversation going. We do get throttled because we talk about whiskey. We talk about cigars. So I know that the viewership is strong, but you don't have to do the Patreon. You don't have to do the Venmo. Obviously, that's just a little extra. We appreciate that support financially. Keep this thing going. Less money out of our pockets here. We enjoy doing it every week. But most importantly, the best way you can support us is get more people listening and share it with people you think they would enjoy the show. That's my plug in the intermission. What were we going to say?
No, I was answering Ray's comment. He's saying, the bar's not paying $60. So in the state of Ohio, wholesale price is not that much lower than MSRP. So, for example, there was a bottle that I was able to acquire recently that I was able to get it at bar price, wholesale price, and it was $3 less than MSRP.
Yeah, in Ohio, because again, it's a state-run liquor agency, it's pretty much MSRP.
Yeah.
So if you find a bottle on the shelf, you win a lottery for one of the high Pappy 23, it's $2.99 or whatever it is now, right? That's what you're paying in the state of Ohio. You're not paying the secondary. If you find a bottle of Pappy 23 in a state that's not regulated, you're going to be paying thousands.
Yes.
If it's on the shelf. So, I mean, to Ray's point and what Nate's explaining, it's already at MSRP. So wholesale is not like half that.
Yeah, no.
That's not how it
No.
works with that. At least in Ohio, and I think a lot of places, they pay around the market value, or like the wholesale is the MSRP. But I mean, like what I was saying though, where this could be 15. Fuck, I mean, a pour of Buffalo Trace is usually at a fair bar in Ohio is $12.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that bottle
$25.99.
$25. So 2 pours, you got your bottle back.
Yep.
So the other, what is it? 23 ounces, right?
27 ounces, I think.
27. So I mean, you figure you get about 15 to 20, depending on how you're pouring them, an ounce, ounce and a half, 2 rocks pour. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of profit there where something like this doesn't have the demand. So yeah, you're not going to necessarily, you don't take the $25 Buffalo Trace to the $12 pour. This would then be fucking $36 for a pour. That's not how it works. You know what I mean? There is some logic to the value of what you're going to be paying a pour there for.
Yeah. On a lot of bottles, stuff that's not, highly allocated and stuff like that. A lot of bars, I think, in the state, I think your pour price is usually about 20% of the bottle cost.
I'll do, and there's comments here. We'll get into part 2. Ryan, I love getting in Buffalo Trace. I eat off those profits. And then it's crazy. People pay $12 all day long. I will do like Buffalo Trace. We were at a steakhouse a couple nights ago, and they made their old fashioned. They like to use Buffalo Trace in their old fashioned. Same price as like an old fashioned with anything else. Like, not well, but like Woodford or it's in that ballpark of like they don't overcharge for that. But I typically wouldn't do a Buffalo Trace neat for $12 or $13. I just wouldn't. But some people do. And again, if you like Buffalo Trace, you're at a bar, you're either paying $12 for something you like, or you're paying $15 to $20 for something that you've never had and you may not like. So again, I also pay whatever, at certain places. Concert, I pay $8, $10 for a Miller Lite. I mean, what do you want to talk about?
And speaking of your dinner Monday night, happy birthday, Kristen.
Yeah, cheers
and also
to Kristen.
happy birthday, Shannon Chapman.
Today, yeah.
Yeah.
Kristen, Germany.
No, Kristen, my girlfriend.
Oh.
Kristen Flock.
Happy birthday,
No, not Christy.
Christy.
Yeah. Kristen. Went to the top steakhouse here in
Tops.
Columbus,
Nice.
and it was fantastic.
Have you gone to Degree 165 yet? Right around the corner from the shop.
Cut 132.
Cut. Yeah, sorry, that's what it is.
I have not. I've heard mixed things.
The tomahawk steak.
I've just
it's killer.
on the people were going when it opened up, and it was like the service was.
I sat
hit
at the
or
bar. I
miss.
sat at the
Okay,
bar. And it was
bar's a good
amazing.
way to go. Hit or miss, and
I walked in.
I feel as though, and I don't know if this is everywhere, I feel like around Columbus there is a wave of it's just you don't know if your steak's gonna be cooked right or not.
Mine was pretty bloody.
That's good.
It was good.
The top, we had 8 people there, 6 of which Kristen didn't know about being there. So it was a fun surprise, but everyone enjoyed it. Service was fantastic, which also makes it when you're paying those prices for drinks and a meal.
Mm-hmm.
Service was great. The everything they kept the surprise. They played into it. As far as the host, it was great. Everything worked great.
Was there a ring in the steak?
No,
there was
Okay.
not.
All right.
there would have been a lot more pictures on social media if
There
that
was
was the
not.
case.
There was not. She enjoyed it.
Good.
All right, you guys want to go into part 2 here?
Sure.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 277, part 2, Beyond the BS, and we are continuing to be joined by Josh Porter. Josh, thank you for being a part of this. I'm glad you have this renewed interest in our podcast.
No, I think it was your renewed interest to finally get me back after episode.
Well, you
2.
showed up last week, and
Been
it's
playing
been
hard to
how
get.
many years since you'd been in the garage during the podcast?
Well, there was one more before. I did one more also before that. I was
Yeah.
in here.
No, it's great to have you back.
But
I mean,
thank you guys.
Yeah, no.
I appreciate
You actually helped us kind of get started. You helped for those that always have said, not necessarily in podcasts, but here in the shop, here at everywhere, like, oh, you should do voiceovers and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
did dabble in trying that out.
Dabble.
And
Yeah.
Josh doing what he does, having this equipment. He had an old microphone laying around, a nice microphone. We actually use it in the studio here. The studio audience that's their mic. That one you had let me use.
That's cool.
And you let me use that, kind of walk me through some different things, give me some foam and stuff to try to, if you remember that back then. Not for here, it's when I was doing it at the old house, trying to do the voiceover,
The voiceover stuff.
but,
Gotcha.
he's definitely a resource, Josh is, and he helped out kind of when we were getting started with this, and it's come a long way. I mean, we were not doing all this stuff on there on the screen and everything when we first started. I mean, it was literally just us sitting around a card table
with
one
One mic.
microphone
Yeah.
and
everyone sounded like they were 20 feet away.
no video. Yeah, you couldn't have that propane heaters going or anything like that.
Lighter drops.
Oh yeah, it's definitely different. I mean, we've come a long way in 5 years, yet we're still at the core very casual. We're in a garage. We're not that whole polished thing.
I love it.
I've
Perfect.
thought about doing more, like trying to get into that. Obviously there's cost involved, but it's also the production thing where it's like, I might try to do some different angles and stuff like that, but I feel like now everyone's doing it. You know what I
The
mean?
production quality in the whole industry overall has gone down so low.
Yeah.
So you're at par now.
Yeah.
So
Because everyone's doing the polished thing where it's like you have the 2 angles, the wide
Yeah,
angle. It's
sometimes.
like everyone's the same thing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, is the content any good?
that's the point.
You know what I'm saying?
As
Like, you
a
can polish
yeah,
it up, but it's
exactly.
like, is it any good? I mean, some people are listening to this right now.
you
right?
have a
Well,
story
you're
to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so yeah, Josh, not sure what that Josh,
Question?
no, I got a text from Kristen. I don't really, she says she's probably gonna hate me for reading this. Why does Josh think I'm a bodybuilder? Did you say anything about that?
I did.
I didn't get that.
Christy Germany, which is a young lady that used to be in the shop all the time having cigars. She ended up moving to Florida.
She's back actually, yeah.
Oh yeah, she did come back.
So maybe
yeah.
there's a bodybuilder with that name or similar name.
She's like prior Air Force or something. I don't think
She's
body-
she's still
bodybuilder.
enlisted, I
Yeah.
think. Anyways,
Happy
sorry.
birthday.
happy birthday, Kristen. She probably was like, why'd you mention that on the podcast? She listens every week. for better or worse.
We just said happy birthday. We didn't say the age. It's all right.
All right, everyone. So Josh, the topic tonight is, this is where we're a little different than most whiskey and cigars. Creative process. And part of that, you gave me a couple different ideas, right? It's the angry face, I bet you. There it is. Love you. Creative process. Obviously, you're in the industry of creativity, right? But there's obviously the business side of it. But you kind of wanted to start talking about, like, how do people start up businesses? You know, how do you your steps to success? How do you find what your passion is, right? Yeah. And you kind of shared a little bit last week. You're on the other side of the camera last week in the audience, and you kind of shared a little bit about that. Mm-hmm. I asked you, I felt like a pretty, not tough question, but about, you know, how it had gone, you know, in the, what was it, 17 years of marriage?
When I get married, 2004.
04?
So 19
years.
We'll be 19 years.
Yeah. So, but I mean, talking about how you started the business and the back and forth and obviously the hurdles and everything like that. But I mean, you know, so tell everyone a little bit about what you do. The company is, so we got Josh Porter with IAMedia. Tell us about, like, what is IAMedia? What do you guys do? Like, and we'll kind of go from there.
Well, we do media content. That's basically what you guys are doing. And, you know, the thing that started off,
media content?
Well, a lot of corporate commercial work for just corporate clients. You know, Sheetz gas station is one of our clients. I do training videos for NGOs, international NGOs. I mean, our biggest clients are actually from like Australia or from out of state. They're not anywhere near this area.
Wow. So you're based out of Columbus, but you work with people all over.
Yeah, all over the world.
Wow.
And I think that's the big thing, I think, which kind of spurred me to talk when you guys were talking yesterday. I mean, I can see your passion. I know Ryan's been in the industry and you guys are doing this thing for so long. I mean,
5 years.
You guys have been doing this and it's really great. You see you guys keep progressing, getting, you know, better at it and inviting, you know, special guests and all that. So, you know, that's cool. And I think that success can just continue to snowball. It could really snowball. And I don't know if people really realize how quickly things can snowball if you really keep going at it.
Okay. So obviously keep putting out content. That's one of the things I've always heard with this stuff is that if you want, and I think that goes with a lot of things. If you want to see long-term goals hit, you have to keep showing up. You got to keep putting out content.
Half the battle.
You know, that's the same thing. Like if you're on a diet and you want to lose weight or eat healthier, it's not just a weekend thing. And then you go back to what you were doing. I mean, you got to keep doing it.
Yeah. It's got to be a lifestyle.
It's got to be a lifestyle to hit those long-term goals. Obviously, it doesn't just like, oh, I'm going to do it and it'll be
lifestyle.
There, right?
It becomes part of your DNA. You do it so well that you're getting better and it's becoming you and you're growing in that process.
So what else do you guys do with IAMedia?
Well, like I said, I mean, really, we do video production. So a lot of interviews, a lot of commercial work, commercial photography. We worked on movies. We dabbled in the movies for a while because of the Ohio tax credit that came out.
Yeah, right.
We started dabbling in that. It didn't seem to, although I was passionate for it, money-wise, it kind of hindered me to go back into just staying within this commercial realm that I knew that I, you know, kind of built up over the time.
Make money.
Make money is bread and butter.
Put some food on the table.
Yeah, I don't have to go for long hours and days and months and be gone. So there was a strategy behind that. At one point, I started a film fund, actually.
A what?
A film fund.
Fund, yeah.
Yeah. You know, where we tried to raise money for independent films that we would produce here, taking advantage of the 30% tax credit, which would be given back to the investors from the state of Ohio to give back 30%. They're paying 30% of the production costs. So that was built in right away.
Yeah.
That whole project actually ended up getting basically swiped from underneath my feet. So I got bad stories too. I can tell you.
Not all smooth sailing.
Not all smooth sailing.
How long have you been doing the IAMedia thing?
Well, when I got out of the military, I was in the military is when I started getting into it. And that was back in like 98.
Okay.
And I was living in Texas. Then I eventually came back home to Columbus, this area where I was born and raised, and came back here and started IAMedia officially in 2003 by walking down to the State House and just filing articles of organization.
Okay.
So that was step one.
I didn't even know you were in the military.
Yeah.
Army, I take it?
No.
Oh,
Aim high.
Air Force.
Yes.
Aim high, he says. All right. So you wanted to talk a little bit about, obviously the steps to success, how to find that passion. So, I mean, again, get a little bit more information out of you. Why the hell are you're getting out of the military, right? You come back to your hometown. Obviously, you've met your now wife, because you said you started this company in 2003.
I started about
you got married in 2004.
a year before.
She still married you.
And at that point I had fake it till you make it attitude.
Yeah.
And I think she might have
What
fell
do you
for
do? No, I
it.
do movies, production. I'm a producer. Does that impress you?
Will Ferrell.
Yeah, it sounds
I
like
know Will Ferrell.
Yeah, it sounds like someone who shoots porn in his basement.
I've
Wow.
had those questions.
It's a long time ago, right, Josh?
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. Now it's only home movies. It's good. That's
Home
good.
movies, weddings, graduations,
That's right.
bar mitzvahs.
Bar mitzvahs. We're still talking about the same thing here. Anyways,
For the video.
oh, okay, got it. But no, it's so like, where do you start up the company, right? And you have a passion for this. Why videos? Why production?
Well, I got interested into this whole thing when I was just a few years into the military, about 2 or 3 years into the military, and I was able to go to school for free because they were paying for my school while I was in the military. So on my time off, I could go to school, and I went to the local community college and got into film production
Down in Texas.
Yeah, me and a good friend of mine, Cedric Williams, who passed a couple years ago. We both got into it together, and it was a passion that
movies.
It was movies, commercials. It was just the whole cinematography aspect of telling stories through film, through video.
Because I think that's part of the question that a lot of people have is like, I want to do something. Like, again, I want to be creative. And now back in the early 2000s, or if that was what would have been around 2000, right? Like late 90s, around 2000.
Yeah.
You didn't have social media. You didn't have Instagram. You didn't have influencers that were, anyone. Obviously that was all produced stuff, right?
High-end stuff of which.
But famous people, like the marketing side of it, whether whatever it might be. But this is like big companies. This was before. That was before everyone had their own podcast. Everyone had their own Instagram.
Correct.
Before everyone had a camera on their cell phone.
Those are our competitors now, almost.
Everyone's a competitor.
Yeah, it can be.
Everyone's a competitor. But I guess go back to that, because I think when you're trying to find what you want to do for a living, especially, or at least a hobby, right? Like you want to do something, spend time doing it, but you're already on this path of like, this is my passion. I want to learn more about it, which is, I think, a step that a lot of people will overlook. They want something. They say they want to be in. Oh, I want to. What you do, man? That'd be cool, man. That'd be really cool to do that. Like I should have my own studio. I can make movies. I dabble with that. I've got Adobe whatever, on my computer. You know
Adobe
what I mean?
Premiere.
I got Adobe Premiere. I got I have iMovie on my Mac. You know what I mean? I've made short films and stuff like that. It's like, how do you translate that to actually going about learning about it? Because I think that's a big step. Like I said, that people they overlook a lot of times. They're like, I just want to be 0 to 60. I want to 0 to 100. I want to be able to do it. And you're talking about way back then. You went to community college and you started learning about it while you were doing something else, obviously serving the country. But at the same time, you fast forward now, 20 plus years later, and you've got international clients. You've got your own studio still here in town where you can do a lot of the work. You can actually, I've been in that the
sound room.
The sound room, right? I did a little voiceover for a small project. That was cool process for me to just be in there and see that. But it's like the learning aspect of it. What the importance of that? Why do you think people skip over that so much?
These days, well, again, like you said, we didn't have YouTube to teach us how to build a house, tell us about every kind of cigar and bourbons there are in the world. And that wasn't there. So for me, for all of us at that time, you could go to school, you become a PA and just learn from the ground up, being a production assistant on these bigger sets. And a lot of those guys did it that way. That's the way it was done. And for me, I'm very entrepreneurial, of which not everybody is. Not everybody can start a podcast and keep it going. That's entrepreneurial. So it takes a lot of drive to do those things. Some people, so at that point I was starting a business, not just learning to become a cameraman and say, go film with this guy or this next director, or go film for this, or go work for this company. Right. I was trying to start my own actual company, which gets a little bit more in the weeds at one point.
It's different than, and that was one of the ideas or kind of comments you were making to me when we were talking about what do you want to talk about tonight. It was like, some people just want a job.
Yep. I said that last week on the episode. Yeah. That's what I was referring to.
And not everyone, there's nothing wrong with it, in my opinion, obviously. And there's nothing wrong with it, but I mean, there's a difference there. Like, you didn't want to just like be in movies. You didn't want to just be in production. Like, you also, along with that, side by side, you wanted to start your own thing.
I saw the vision of trying to run the business and taking on the clients and making that as profitable as I could. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a question here, and we'll get back to that, is everyone thinks they're creative today, or a creative today. How does Josh feel about that?
Should I answer that now?
Yeah, Go ahead.
Well, I mean, again, we talked about that because we didn't, at that time when we started, you were starting at the bottom. It didn't matter. I mean, nowadays it feels like everybody has a camera, DSLR camera. Those cameras weren't around back then. You had to buy a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 camera, an editing system, which was tape to tape, different things like that. So that tells you how old I am. But digital wasn't around. You couldn't put it on an SD card. You couldn't film on your phone.
There's no cloud.
There's no cloud. There's no Adobe Premiere even. We were, at that time, the young guys were using, Avid was the high-end stuff. And then Final Cut came out with Apple, and that kind of started revolutionizing editing.
Final Cut Pro.
Yeah, Final Cut Pro, of which kind of has gone away now. And now it's all Adobe. Everybody's using Adobe Premiere. And some of the higher ends might still be probably using Avid. And so, but you couldn't, there was no way, no quick way about it. And you had to have money to get started. So it was tough getting started. I'm not gonna lie. We had one camera, a small editing system, and it just kind of slowly grew. I eventually got a state contract with the Ohio State Mental Department of Health.
Okay.
For doing training videos for them. That lasted for about 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was one of your first contracts?
Was one of the nice first big ones that kind of helped us, kept us going. Yeah.
Wow.
Shortly after that was that housing crisis.
Yeah. Oh,
So-
just that thing back in 08.
Yeah.
Just that little.
If everybody can
little thing.
remember, marketing at that. So what I've realized too over these years, 20 years, about 20 years, marketing is almost the first thing to get cut when things get tight. People want to cut back. They're going to cut back marketing, which, usually that's supposed to be the opposite of that, but that's not what I found.
You sit around a conference table and you're looking at budgets, and that is, it's short-sighted. I agree.
Yeah.
It is a survival technique, at least. And it's usually the idea is this is going to be short-lived.
Yeah.
And then it is, if you don't stay active with that, the people that do, then they get the leg up on that. We saw that a little bit with like the more recent, crisis or pandemic was the COVID stuff. A lot of people didn't know what to do when you couldn't go in, you couldn't, like the retail shops like us, like you couldn't do your normal business. So some people just turtled up and stayed home, and then other people tried to be active with it, and they kept at it. And I think that's something that's a good point.
Going back to his actual question.
Yeah.
Again,
And then he also has a follow-up. Has it
okay.
made the industry more competitive?
Well, creative wise, again, I'm going back to that same first question was, everybody, I think nowadays, here's the thing. Back then, everything was locked down. You had major studios, you had big production houses like Mills James here in town, Horizon, some other ones, that everything was locked down. I mean, they controlled what was being done. You had the big film studios, they're controlling who gets in, who's working.
They had all the equipment.
Yeah,
They
the
knew what they
equipment,
were
no one
doing.
else could do anything. But
Yep.
once that technology revolutionized with everybody being able to shoot a film on their DSLR, and it looks really good.
Yeah.
With these, shallow depth of field, and it just looks good. It just opened the door for a lot of other creatives. So I haven't at this point. I look for new talent, Ray. I think there's a lot of talent that's not been discovered, new ideas. We see that with some directors that get a chance. I know Jordan Peele had some, he's a comedy, he kind of already had a leg up and all that, but he got his chance at directing. He came out with a couple good ones, like what was the one where his first feature,
Get
Get
Out. Get Out.
Yeah, Get Out.
That was good.
Good film, right?
Yeah.
Good film.
Not what people were expecting from someone who had a comedy
Silly
background.
comedy. Stupid
Yeah, the
comedy.
Key and Peele show,
Stupid.
which was hilarious.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, that's his first,
First
directing a major motion picture,
Mhm.
and it just took everybody
Well,
by
and to
storm.
your point, the technology is continuing to catch up in a sense.
Mhm.
Again, at a much smaller scale, and I think some people might scoff at this a little bit, but I mean, think about what we're doing right now. We pay a small fee a month to be able to utilize this service. We've got a camera. It's not your high-end camera. It's in high
Need
def.
it. Mhm.
We've got the ability to bring up graphics on the screen,
It's amazing.
bring up this conversation, stream live while also being able to post it afterwards. And if I wanted to edit it even more afterwards, I could do that. But most of the time, again, the format of our show is raw. But it's like you have all this stuff, and like I said, now there's this feature even on this is not even software. This is not something that this is online. You log onto the website, and this is how you're streaming this stuff. This is your competition. So I think that's the follow-up question. Obviously, this isn't necessarily competition for some of your more polished products, but it's like there was a time you had to have someone sitting back here and they're being the true producer. And obviously it would help if we had that, so I'm not the one doing it, but it's like
technical director, the guy doing the Kaios on the screen, all that stuff.
Yeah. So this is something that I can put up Ray Cheshire's comment on there on the screen, click a button on the mouse. Now this, if you upgrade the higher end service, I can do at least one extra camera that I could even, as we're doing this. So like if I had a camera pointing to the audience on the other side of the garage, and then all of a sudden Sean or anyone else here is here, it's like, hey, go stand in front of that. And I can use my iPhone on a mount. And that now hooks into this. And it's like, you'll just, talking to the iPhone right there. And then I can switch over, have the two screens on there, all while streaming live. And this is all through Wi-Fi. We're not even hooked up to an Ethernet cable.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, it is, you fast forward with this. It's like, I remember when like the more recent iPhones came out, portrait mode. And then now they did like the cinematic mode for the video. Yeah. It's not there, but it's
you need good lenses.
Getting there.
Yeah, it is getting there.
It's getting there. Not just Apple, but Samsung, all this stuff. What's in your pocket is the technology is phenomenal to be able to do what you're doing. And I think that's what also goes hand in hand with the TikTok and the Instagram and all these influencers or the creative people that think they can do all this stuff. You can. It's a lot of work.
You got to work.
Like people joke about it, and it's
still time.
There's still time. But I mean, 5 years from now, it's
you got time to put into it. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about where we're at right now, you won't need include the AI into this.
Right. I got so many clients out there talking
where
about
it's
AI.
literally like this. We use StreamYard. It's like StreamYard in 5 years. If they keep doing this shit, go like have how many cameras hooked up, and it's like just have it like when this person starts talking, go to that camera, and like you literally just hit go,
right?
And you have a fully produced show with no one behind it. There's no editing, no nothing. It's going to do it for you.
Yeah. I'll put one more layer behind all of this too, but from my personal passionate perspective, I don't really like live content. Like I don't like producing live content.
I was like, you're on it right now, but that's cool. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. I watch the show. I enjoy it. I sit out my he shed and smoke my cigar and bourbon, watch you guys talk all the time. So every week, but I don't like producing just for the viewer people and you guys' information. I like to produce narratives, storytelling. I like to get the creative shots, which take lighting and time and dolly moves and camera gimbals. A little bit. It's a little more process intensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. Yeah, you're right. I'm not taking away from what you do, but there is when it was about the competition, that kind of question, I really think that is what are people looking for? Like you look at shows like The Office, and there's a lot of production there, but you look at I love the show Friday Night Lights, where that whole, but then I went too far, that whole like shaky camera, it's
snap
like
zoom. They call it snap zooms.
Is it snap zooms? But it's like as you like, it's not a steady shot
or
ever.
Shaky, shoulder mounted, handheld.
Shoulder mounted, yeah. So it's like as someone's talking, it's got that little wavering to it, the shot, and then it goes to the next person, and it's the same. Like everyone's like walking around with a fucking camcorder almost. but it had that, and then it got a little. I feel like it got a little bit too extreme, and it went
definitely.
back.
Yeah,
But it was hot for a while.
it was definitely hot. There's definitely, you'll see these waves
Man,
of
it was
people
hot.
just jump on board because they think it's hot and they'll try to sell it. Especially like these big ad agencies or Hollywood. If it's hot, they're gonna mimic it.
They're gonna try it.
Yeah,
They're gonna cash it when they can.
Yeah.
But even like that, like this shit, like I call it shaky cam.
Yeah.
It got to the point where then all of a sudden you're doing it, and it's a little more action oriented, and you're just like, I'm getting fucking sick watching the show.
I do too. I don't really like
you
it.
went from a drama where it was like it had a little bit of that you're there feel, and then all of a sudden it got a little bit like let's push a little further, and all of a sudden you're like I can't watch that show anymore. It's really good, I enjoyed it, but then it's like I'm watching it, and it's like oh my god, like it was like I'm on a boat watching this thing. It got a little too
So
much.
I remember watching this is back when I was still living at home. I was watching, I think it was the second Born Identity film, which used some of that handy cam stuff, like for some of the chase scenes. But I was drinking a bottle of scotch while I was doing it. So eventually it got to the point where there was just so much movement. I was like, I almost feel dizzy watching this. I got to turn it off. And
Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah.
How do you keep up with the trends with that? Or do you stick with your tried and true, what you want to do, like you were talking about?
That's actually a good point. Tried and true has never gone away.
Right.
I don't have clients asking me, hey, we want to make this shaky really anymore.
No,
it goes
it's
back.
gone.
It went back to just what we have. There's the drone thing. We get drone shots, additional drone shots now. People
Which used to be helicopter shots.
Used to be I've flown out of helicopters.
Yeah,
I've done all that. Yeah, I've sat off the side. I got good stories, interesting stories from that. When the guy drank too much the night before, and the camera op I hired, we flew out in a brand new helicopter from Lancaster and flew to West Virginia for a corporate client that does chemical manufacturing of some sort. And let's just say I had to take over the camera.
Puking.
Oh, well, he also had to land in the middle of a cornfield. And,
he was the pilot?
No, this was the camera operator.
All right. I was like, Jesus
we had to
Christ.
land in the middle of a cornfield about halfway between. The guy said, you're not throwing up in my brand new helicopter.
No,
Took it down.
I used helicopter. I
The
don't
farmer
care how old
comes
it is.
out and he comes out with a shotgun, and we're just
Oh my
like,
God.
bro, you got to go throw up. He said, you got to get out. The blades are still going. I have photos of this and everything. I was documenting the whole procedure.
Now you're shooting a different film here.
It was for the blog, actually.
Yeah.
And, but we have it all documented. So I actually shot the entire rest of the day on it was a red camera on a helicopter gyro. So it's like it looks like almost like you're shooting a machine gun
Mount,
out of a helicopter but it's gyro. It's
so that way it
Stabilizes.
it's
stabilizes.
stabilized, and it's
Yeah.
it starts to get so fast, and then it's quiet, but it's
Wow. So going back to knowing a little bit more about what you're doing. So you wanted to talk about like the differences between like having a job and being an entrepreneur, the steps of success, obviously also the finding what you're enthusiastic or passionate about. I mean, how do you translate some of this, your story, to just anyone listening?
Yeah. Well, when people know I do marketing, I'll get guys, whether family members or friends, come over and usually want to have a conversation about, hey, how can I get started? Because they think I can help with getting them out there, getting their
In this field?
no, anything.
Anything.
Like, it could be the one of my family members was he did like gas installation type stuff. So he just wanted to start a business relating to that, home gas.
So this is like just straight up business questions.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
And then how can I get it out there? How can I, build a website and get
some of the
get
media
calls,
productions, but also,
how can I get the calls? And I feel like, those are the kind of people that do want to become entrepreneurs. They do want to start the business. And then there's those steps that you need to follow. First off, go down and register yourself with the Secretary of State and just register your business name, have a business bank account.
file an LLC or whatever.
And then, once you start creating a website, if you do the proper SEO, like I don't think you guys have a website, right?
We don't. This is a side gig. No,
Yeah. Well, like
we've never taken that step.
so
When I
when
file my taxes, any of this, the Patreon, like
Sure.
it's all through my personal taxes at this point.
Yeah. But then, so guys like just want to get started. How can I help them with marketing? Well, all the SEO stuff, which I think I pride myself most on, well, not me, but the business, how we get clientele, like these people that are coming from overseas, and how do they find us? They're only finding us through the internet. It's not really, my clientele is hardly any of it. I say 60-70% is new business that finds me through the internet.
Not even word of mouth.
No.
Wow.
I mean, people from California, New York, just Australia, London, it just, and most of my clientele, I don't think they're even in Ohio.
Yeah.
Most of them are not. They're coming in here to shoot something. They have somebody here they want to shoot an interview for and do some B-roll footage and drone stuff.
They look for someone local.
They look for a company local. You
So
say
let-
someone, but it could be,
Yeah.
it could be.
I meant, when I say someone, they look for
That's
a
my
company.
competition. It could be. That
It
could
could
be
be-
just a someone
Yeah,
who has a
it could
website
be-
who's in their mom's basement.
So
True.
these companies that are out of state, even out of country, say they're finding you online just by searching on the internet. But I'm sure when they search media production companies in Ohio or in Columbus, Ohio, there's probably a bunch of them that pop up.
Exactly.
What makes them come to you?
That goes back to what I was mentioning. I'm glad I've taken on that initiative to continue to push for that, because I will do what's necessary to get us onto that front page of different Google search. If someone types in video production company Columbus, Ohio, I have to be on there first page. I want to be at about 3 or 4 different spots, whether it's paying Google for clicks but even more so natural, just organic SEO. So
SEO, for those who don't know, is search engine optimization.
Right.
Is what he's referring to. And that's a way. So that is something that no matter what search you use, and it has narrowed down a little bit, I think. And I don't know about, it can go as far as LinkedIn, for the social media side with your stuff. But I mean, search engine optimization, for those that aren't as familiar with it, it used to be you really had to look at so many different things, right? So it was like Google, Yahoo,
Bing.
Bing is a new one.
Bing.
Bing is growing.
Again?
It's growing.
I thought it was like 15 years ago.
Yeah, well, Microsoft is doing a lot. Their AI and all that. They're coming up.
But you had to look at all of those, and it sounds like you still do. I mean,
for sure.
Google is obviously your giant right there. Yahoo,
Yeah,
feed, and
Google.
a lot of them now feed into the others,
They
right?
do.
The search engines look like it all
Same
feeds
algorithms.
each other, right?
Same algorithm.
And then depending on what the industry you are, obviously Yelp and Apple,
Yep,
and
all
Apple uses Yelp,
Yep.
and I mean it's just you got to make sure all your information is
linked,
it's
synchronized.
linked exactly, and it says the same thing on everything.
Yep,
It's a lot of work.
It is. It can be.
Talk about like the organic side of
but-
it, because that is something that a lot of people don't
That organic
realize.
side keeps me. I literally don't have to hire a salesperson.
Yeah.
And I know I can sell my business more than anybody else can. I can sell myself and the people I work with, their creative abilities and our background more than anybody. I know how to create those budgets, because a salesperson, when it comes to production, it's a little different. Like, you can say how good you are, but when it comes, that salesperson is not going to create the budget. So at one point, it's going to get back to me anyways. And so if I don't need their leads are coming to me directly, and I just send them a quick budget, of which maybe I have so many different variations of, like, okay, here's a two-man crew versus a 5-man crew with 8 actors and
So
a
you're
producer. And there's these, quotes that I can just copy and replicate. So there's a thing about just being, faster and quicker than other people
responding. Quick one.
Good
there from
response, yeah.
Ryan. Does Instagram and Facebook have a big impact on your business as far as marketing?
Here's the fun. It has zero impact.
I don't think it's that industry, right?
It just has zero. When I think these clients, they go to Google or maybe some of the other big ones, and they type in video production company, Columbus, Ohio. That's what they go for. And I'll be in the top. I'll have about 4 or 5 different links right on the first page.
Okay.
I'll be within like the Up City listing, which I pay for. I'll be within Clutch. I'll be within Production Hub, which I pay for monthly. And then my organic website itself, just the business name of the website, will be in that first page too. So I get about 5 shots at that first page.
I will say
pretty good.
The biggest first step, though, is to update your listing and know what you're
Always
doing.
updating them.
So, correct. I'm saying, though, like when you're talking about that first step, right? So like even in the smaller, like, where I've got a little experience from the moving and storage side of it when I was doing some of that stuff, and then also
You were doing the
from
marketing, weren't you, at one point?
it was all at one point, yeah. So like doing like, you know, and you have to claim your listing, right? You
Yeah.
not only do you have to, like, if you have a website or whatever, but you have to claim your listing as a business. And you don't even have to, like, you have to, you can, there's a field for website. I mean, you don't necessarily at first have to have a website, but you have to claim like the business, the physical address or whatever it might be. You can plug all this stuff in, and then there's the validation part of it. Like there's these steps there, but it's keywords, it's all this stuff. And then the organic side, to my knowledge of it's still the same, is that there's certain keywords that you can use on the literature on your website.
Correct.
So
Keyword
that
density.
keyword, yeah, exactly. So like with you, it's whatever your
Videographer, drone operator, camera operator, producer, video production company.
and that links to like the drone operator part of like okay, you have a link to the drone part of it, and then on the drone page, like you say drone certain like as many times, you know, we use drones, we use this type of drone, you know, we're happy to be able to use drones. I was happy to do the blah 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 drone. So that the more it hits, they're like, no matter what they change as far as the algorithms, you know what I mean, on how that works, you do get a bit of more traffic there. But it is, the first step is just like anything else. You make a statement that you're there, you're an option, and then you learn the rest of this stuff. But it's claiming yourself as a listing on all the search engines. Because if you don't do that, they're not like Nate. You asked the word of mouth part. That is another great way to do business, right?
Still is.
You have that backing of the word of mouth. It's kind of like a built-in portfolio, right? The word of mouth part of it. But you can also, that's the big thing on your website, if you do have that, or on Google, on Yelp, on whatever, Bing, whatever, you have reviews. You want that.
Yeah, reviews.
You know, it's something that, even on a side note, again, not to keep bringing it back to us, but like on the podcast, when I say, you know, subscribe, like, review, all that stuff, that's how things show up. If you do a search for bourbon on podcasts, or you do a search for whiskey, you do a search for cigars, whatever, not necessarily part 2, but they'll find that as well. But when you're looking for that, is that the more people that give us a 5-star review or a 4-star review or whatever they want to give us, but then they also review it, share, thumbs up, whatever, that all feeds into it. You know what I mean? It's like Google reviews, same thing. It's like the more you have, the more legitimate you look. You know, we were just looking at the shop for HVAC people when I was doing I did a search for it. I knew some companies, but I did a search for it. If a company says it's been in business for whatever 5 years and has 12 reviews, and it's got a 4.5 out of 5, and then right below it is a 4.9 that has 2,500 reviews. All right, you know, this company is interested in sticking around. They're doing a lot, you know what I mean? The other people might do a better job, but I'm going to call that other one that has more reviews, more interaction, more like they're active with this stuff. You know what I mean?
Same thing with like buying something.
It gives it validity, right? I mean, it's that lemur type mentality, right? Like I'm going to follow them. Like I'm going to follow everyone else. Like, oh, they all like this. I'm going to do that. You know what I mean?
Just like buying something on Amazon, like you'll find a product. It's like, oh, it's got 3 reviews, but this similar product's got, 3,000 reviews. It's like, well, you balance out the mathematics of it. Like, okay, on this one, 2 out of 3 people liked it. Well, on this one, 2,700 of 3,000 people liked it. Like, where's the you have more satisfied clients with people that have been using that product more. Same thing with you've got satisfied clients, but you've got more clients as well instead of.
Yeah. So going back to the creative process, Josh, I mean, how have you grown? Like, where are we at now? What keeps you wanting to do this?
It has its ups and downs. It has its ebbs and flows. Like I said, with the movie business side of it, it kind of burnt me out. I was invited to come film with Winter Soldier as one of the camera operators.
Wow.
I didn't want to do it at that time. When did that come out? It was like
shit has now been 10 years.
My kids were so young, and that was part of the reason they wanted us to come to Cleveland for 3 months. And at that time, my business was already going, and I had a passion for trying to get into that, and I wanted to, and I still do.
2014, 9 years.
Yeah. But I had to turn it down, and eventually, like I said, when I got that film fund started, I thought, well, this is the way I want to do it. I want to do it this way. I want to have a film fund where we control the production. We are the producers. The funds are coming here locally, and we're filming this in Columbus. And I had some wealthy individuals that I've contacted over through that process that I had meetings with. And one guy I met with for over, I think it was 2 years. And that ended up not going as I thought, not as I thought.
How so?
I planned. Well, I was pitching, me as being the film fund manager, and then them with their support, the organization that they already had made it perfect sense. They were an arts nonprofit. They're very wealthy. And, it was all good and shits and giggles at that time. And we thought, well, this is the film we're going to do. I was pitching them this one. And there was another one also. And I think at one point, I almost don't even know what happened. It just so blindsided.
Fizzled out? Or?
No, it just, they wanted, I think the person who I got involved just didn't want me involved anymore because I was going to take away him being the one who
limelight.
And take credit for it all. So I guess at one point you think, well, now I don't need him anymore. I've sucked 2 years of his information from him, and I'm just going to do this.
Okay.
And so they ended up getting a script that was locally, and they ended up producing a small independent film. And at that point, I was like, I almost got burned out. So last week's episode, I would have been good for a good person for last week's episode on burning out. At that point, I kind of switched back, and I was like, I don't like these people. And I don't want to be.
I don't
involved.
like the crowd that I'm dealing with.
And I'm happy where I was. I was happy. I like enjoying what I do, so I don't think I need that even in my life. So, I went back to my bread and butter, and I've been there since.
You talk about some of the production that you do, some of the videos and commercials, stuff like that. I mean, you're usually dealing with a handful of people. Usually or maybe a dozen or so, whereas some of those movie productions, you're dealing with dozens, if not 100 people.
Some of our productions, they go from a one-man band almost to 2 people to almost 40, 50, just like that.
Yeah. But when you have that smaller type of production where there's, like you said, if you're doing a 5-man crew, you're the owner of the business, you're sending a 5-man crew to do this project, you have a lot more control about what's going on rather than some major studio production where there's just a shit ton of people. And then you have very, very little control.
Little person involved.
Yeah.
I mean,
you like being the guy that has control of the
final
product,
the creative process and the final product. And I think I bring things to that side of the table too, for the client, when it comes to quality, et cetera, et cetera. But, I'm still hurt about the film project. And one day, I'll try to climb that ladder once again.
You think you will?
I do. Yeah, I do. I've revolutionized the way I thought about it, just like these YouTube people have done it, where they're doing, or even you guys are doing this yourself.
Yeah.
My thought is I can't do a movie myself, but I can build the crew, and I could possibly almost budget for myself and just say, you know what? We're going to go out and do this independent film for 50 to 100,000. And we're going to do it. We're going to make it. We're going to push it into Sundance and other film festivals. And we're just going to do it.
Because sometimes those steps, they're monumental and they're big for you. Mm-hmm. But really it's like a first step for something else.
Man down.
Fire.
Cigar's too big for me.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
Was it 6x54?
Yeah.
No, I think that's how do you get past that? Let me ask you that, because I'm listening to this story and I'm like, I'm thinking you got a wealth of knowledge here, right? With not only having a business, but being in a very interesting field for a lot of people that we all consume media constantly. Mm-hmm. More so now with social media, but even like the traditional stuff. I mean, you got all the streaming services. We had someone say to me the other day, would it be great if you could just bundle all your you got to pay for Netflix, you got to pay for Hulu, you got to pay for ESPN Plus, and you have to pay for Paramount, you got to pay for this. Wouldn't it be great if we just pay one one thing. I'm like, yeah, we had it. It was called cable.
It's good.
You know what I mean? Like there is like this little bit of like this come back around type mentality, but it's like I'm
Binge it
listening.
and cancel it though. You can do that too though.
You can cancel.
Binge and cancel.
Binge and cancel. I think about that stuff. Last week I asked you about, the whole thing about like with having, everyone's got different circumstances, and you started a family around the same time, including, starting a family of getting married,
right.
And great family, sweet people in your life. I mean, supportive. I know it's not always been easy. You kind of shared that a little bit last week, guys. If you listened to part 2 of Ryan's episode last week, but I mean, you did open up a little bit about that, but it's like those failures, those burnout moments when that person and that, that project that you keep talking about, that you might try it again.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things I think that we all deal with, that there are times where you got so burnt by a situation or by a person that you're just like, I'm not going to do this again.
Yeah.
I got to look out for me. How do you not just pack up shop and just say you're not going to do this again? You went back to your bread and butter. You didn't quit. You didn't just go get a job. You're like, this is not for me. I need to have a 8 to 5. I need to have this, steady work. How do you build up that kind of, I don't know, just the inside part of you? Is it the entrepreneurial spirit? Is it just something that's the drive? Yeah. Is it you don't want to fail, even though you're gonna fail at times? But I mean, like, that's, I think,
that could get you in trouble too. If you're doing it just because you don't want to fail, and that can come from your background, that can come from maybe someone telling you you're not good enough. That could get you in trouble. If you're doing it because of that,
a coach, a teacher,
a bad experience, like you said,
a boss, bad boss.
Yep. If you're doing it for that reason, it could maybe be part of the reason. I think it can. Some people, it spurs them on a little bit, but it shouldn't be your whole reason. And for me,
go ahead.
Well, for me to get back into that, it took a breath. I had to step back. Just focus on family, friends, what's important.
Yeah.
Because I realized like I said earlier, I didn't like these people. Why am I around these people?
How long? Like, what was the period here? Well,
that was a couple of years.
Wow.
I mean, I was still doing my business almost daily, but that was just a portion of me that was going there. Like,
so you're overextending
monthly meetings and get-togethers and talks and describing and trying to push this agenda, which then eventually they just said, oh, thanks for all this info. I'm taking it. Yeah. This guy's never done anything.
When are we doing our next meeting? I
was at one time I went to the board meeting, and I actually said in the board meeting, I said, guys, and I think it was the last time I ever was invited back. I said, guys, and it didn't stick anywhere, but I had to say it.
Sure.
Because, at that point, for me, I had to say it. But guess what? That's the sad part about it. No one at the other table cared. They already had their own plans, their own agendas. And for me to stand there and say, guys, this was my idea, and, I would appreciate, going forward like this, and for them just to be silent, and for there to be.
That's your answer.
That was my answer. That was my answer. It's a little salty.
And you still haven't recovered from it.
Well, I have, and I've
dealt with it.
And I've taken breaths, and I pulled back, and I said, you know what? If I do this again, I'm just going to do it with people I actually really do enjoy and like and feel good about.
So I think sometimes it's the what you want to do, and then also the how is what I'm listening. Like when I'm hearing that, it's the fact that you may want to do it again, but it's the how is completely different.
Yeah. And that's what can get you in trouble.
I've had that in my professional career where something didn't work out, and for the longest time I've not
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, dinosaur flying around here. Jeez. And for the longest time, like I never wanted to do that again, even though that at the time that was something I really wanted to do. There was that saltiness of the way things went down that made me never want to do it again. But then once I got to a point where, kind of like what you were talking about, where things were stable, I was doing something. I was providing for my family. Like things were okay.
You felt better at that time.
Yeah.
Just felt better.
Like I got to the point where I was like, okay, I still, even though it didn't work out, I still enjoyed doing that. If I ever go back to try that again, I'm going to be much more selective about the opportunity I pursue. Yeah. As long as everything personally is taken care of, as long as I'm in a good position, I can take that risk again, but I can also be more selective. And so, like within the first, I'll say 3 years after that opportunity didn't pan out the way I wanted it to, I actually had multiple contacts and multiple chances to get back into doing that same thing, but none of them felt right. Even though I wasn't really happy doing what I was doing, I was at least making a paycheck and I was providing for my family. So I was more selective. Like, yes, I want to do that again. I don't want to do it for you. Because I don't think that situation is going to be any better than what I had before.
Yeah. I think you have to give yourself a little bit of time, like you were talking about, Josh, too. Like with what you're saying, Nate. I mean, I had a similar experience when I was let go from the moving and storage industry, right? And it was after 10 years, and this is a young 10 years. I mean, this is like basically 21 to 31, right? So this is like basically college, and then went straight into this and did the moving and storage thing and did different positions. As part of a franchise system. I was let go immediately. I was contacted by other franchises that were, and even like people from corporate were like, hey, we might, it may not be like I was the GM at the end of the time there, but it's like, man, like we don't know what happened. We don't need to know, but like, would love to talk to you about that. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to I was kind of like you. Like, I need a fucking second. I need a breath. Like
you need to reassess.
Yeah. I think there's a reaction there. You know what I mean? Because everything that on my end, like even with my shortcomings, maybe that I may have realized through that process, but it was one of those things where I also was like, if I went back to it now, it would be a totally different mindset. Now, granted, this has been 10 plus years later, right? But I mean, there was a period there that it's like, when you think things are going a certain way, like you, Josh, saying that there's this project, and all of a sudden, like you saw it going a certain way, and it was, and then all of a sudden it was taken kind of away from you. The creative process, this whole like hunger, the everything, like in what you're saying, Nate, there, where it's like, I have to be more selective. I think it's a combination for me, a lot of those things where it's, I wanted to do well, but it was like, it wasn't necessarily a hit to my ego. It was really to my core, where it was like, I gave 10 years of my life to this. You gave 2 years to that project. You're like, it wasn't just from the start. This was kind of my project, and but I gave 2 years of my life, like you gave 2 years to your life. I gave 10 years of my life that they gave 10 years. There was good reciprocation for a while, but at the end of it, it was like, you're just calling it. It's the same thing like in a relationship, where you can do that. It's like, and it goes south. You're like, oh, wait a second. Like, both parties have given this, and now you're just calling it. That really, like, talk about the creative process, or just even like your drive at that point. And I think, Josh, when you said it's like, you don't want to just do it to not fail, because if you don't give yourself that time, whatever it is, to be like, if I just go do it out of spite, yeah, fuck, like it can.
There's no creative process at that point.
I'm telling you though, spite though, like doing that, like out of like revenge, or like the anger.
I don't operate that way, but some people.
No,
do.
but I'm saying, like, there is some fuel there. Like, that fire is burning hot, and as long as you can harness that, like, there is at least a short burst that you are gonna fucking kill it. But if you don't necessarily heal, or you don't necessarily kind of figure out why you're doing it again, or like get back to that why and how you want to do it. All of a sudden it's like 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, it's like, fuck, this is the same thing. I'm in the same boat. I'm working with the same people. Like Josh moves on to another project, whatever it might be. You're like, I'm going to do this the right way. And then you're like, fuck, I don't like these people. This is the same goddamn thing all over again.
You were so hungry to do it.
They hire you because you're just fucking guns blazing. You're just kicking it.
But you have the
like,
wrong motivation.
Wrong motivation. Spite is fun sometimes, but it is short-lived a lot of times.
I have other stories. Like I have a friend that he recently did a feature film here in town called Adeline, and he almost had the same situation. That just the whatever happened at the end is, from his direct, whatever it is that he told me, was just taken from him. These people in high-end positions that feel like they can control us. They can control the creatives. How about that? And that was the thing in Hollywood back in the day. They can control the creatives. They could tell what stories are being told.
Still is.
They can say what's being said on the news. They can control all.
We just saw that the last fucking 3 years ago.
But we're changing a lot of that with stuff like this podcast, I think.
And yet we talk about that, and it's funny because that is one of those things where you talk about the powers that be. Even with this podcast, there was a time up through even 2020 into 2021, and we were just organically and through the following and sharing and all that stuff, we were getting anywhere between like 2,000 and 5,000 views a week. And then it was like a light switch when all the shit happened in the summer of 2021, and not just us because of tobacco and alcohol, but it was just everything just got throttled.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, we need to control this shit because it's free speech. And the fact that like we didn't create Facebook, we didn't create Instagram, we didn't create all this stuff. So we're using a free platform to us, but this is billions of dollar companies that are doing this. And it's like, they can throttle whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
They want you to pay to do it.
Because what's the alternative?
There's none.
There's you send out a group message. I don't know. Group text. You know what I mean?
We're gonna the next Bourbon and BS podcast episode will be a compilation of 100 consecutive TikToks.
Yeah, but even that can be throttled. But it goes back to what you're saying though, Josh. Like, that's the reoccurring thing here is that's where the entrepreneurial stuff comes through with you, because you talk about like your friend that did the same thing. It's like the powers that be, like. Talk about Hollywood, you talk about all this stuff. It's like if just in this, what I know of you, I've known you for a long time, but I'm not trying to like summarize it for the viewers and the listeners. But what I really am fascinated with is someone like you. You're down to earth. You don't talk about work all the time. When you come in the cigar shop or we hang out or whatever, it's like you don't talk about it. You answer any questions. You're willing to talk about it clearly, even on a show like this. But what keeps coming back is that it's doing it for you. And you've brought up a couple hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that really is kind of reoccurring here, what I'm hearing is you want to do it in a sense your way. But I would say you've also learned a lot from these experiences.
Yeah. But when I say, like, when I take on clients, like in the corporate world, just that I am now, it's not really my way. I'm doing it their way. I want them to give me as much creative feedback. I want them to tell me what they envision. I'm actually doing what they envision. So when it comes to this creative control, when it comes to these clients, like my bread and butter corporate client type commercial work, they have creative control. I do bring a lot to the table, and I try to help them along that way because I have there's various stages, right? There's the little mom and pop shop that wants to do something. Then there's this big, large ad agency that comes, from New York or Cali, and they're like, this is our script. This is what we're doing. We just need you to cast and shoot it well. And like, it's kind of more like they're telling me what to do, which is great. I'm cool with that. But when it comes to movie productions, film narratives, that's where it gets very fishy.
I guess let me rephrase that. You like what you're doing, you want to do it for what you think is the good, whether it be the client's wants and everything else. But when there's people that are pulling the strings or they're calling the shots that have different, not ideas of what the project is, you know what I mean? If you get hired by someone, obviously, yeah, you're doing it for them. You know what I mean? And you're not just that person, I got to do it my way. You hired me for a reason. I didn't mean like that. I'm saying that you don't want to work on a project. You don't want to work on any job. And then all of a sudden it's like someone that really doesn't have shouldn't have say, but because they're the biggest dick in the room,
Right.
they now have the biggest say. I didn't mean it like you get hired by someone. You're like, you hired IAMedia for a reason. Shut your mouth. Let me do my job. Like, I'm not saying that, because then you would be
That's
the
Nate's
people,
approach.
that,
I'm in charge of this. You want that? You want that?
Yeah.
No. You tell me what you want.
The next
I was looking
Sheetz-
for plans.
the
No, you didn't.
the next Sheetz commercial is going to have someone rappelling from a helicopter with an M60, just Rambo style.
But that's what I mean. Like, you're doing it because you see like what the job is, like why you're doing what you're doing. And I feel like what I saw from these other examples is that someone else took control because they felt like they wanted to take control.
Yeah,
Right. So that's where I'm saying. So you say it's a movie production side, but when you get hired in from like by Sheetz or whoever, like, small mom and pop or a bigger, company. Yeah. You work for them. They hired you for this.
Yeah, that's where your paycheck's coming from.
But if you were the one that was hired in and you were the one that was, say you work for a media company, but you were the one that brought in the lead, you're the one that's doing all the work, and then all of a sudden the owner or the whoever, the supervisor, the person above you, they come in at the 11th hour and they're like, whoa, this isn't what I think we should be doing. You're like, I've already done all the legwork with the client. I've already done all this. Like, everyone's happy.
They've already signed off.
And
on
now
it.
you're stepping
That's
in just to fucking step in. Like, and you work for that person, not the company, but like you work in a media company, and you're just like, you're just like, now you're pissing I'm upset. The client, who we're like, again, 90% done, they're happy with it, and you're just stepping in to prove your worth.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what I was getting at.
Well,
Is that
yeah.
you want to do it your way because you see it a little clearer.
Well, when you work with a lot of these different like ad agencies and client, corporate marketing type person, there's going to be a creative director that's going to also oversee everything at one point. There's going to be a costume designer. There's a set designer. There's the director of photography, which I've bumped heads with so many times, and that's the normal part of the creative process when it comes to those kind of productions. So that's a daily norm. But I think when I was burnt, that came from a whole just greed side, not really part of the vision or like trying to work together.
Is it ego or is it something else?
Well, I think that was just ego, probably related.
That's where it's like, it's like, I feel like someone needs to like prove their value or worth.
No, that happens. Yeah, that happens on set too.
Yeah, you're just like, dude, like we're fine.
Yeah.
You're making money off this too.
Right.
Like you're cool. Like you don't need to interject. You can give feedback, but like you don't need to take control. Like there's no need. Like the control is already cool.
Yeah, I've heard PAs who are at the bottom of the rung try to step up and say something, and they might actually have a good.
Sure.
So you have to take the good with the bad when someone tells you something kind of creative. Like they can take a part of that, but like PAs should not be on set. Like really,
PA means
production assistant.
okay.
They're like $200 a day, day rate employee.
Yeah.
So but like, I have friends that are also good friends of mine that are those PAs that I'm like, I know they're creative and I know there's something more in here and I know I can pull something out of their creative. So I should listen to some of it.
Sure.
So at one point, I got to check my ego too.
You got to filter out some of the bullshit.
Yeah, that and then check my ego as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can't just sit there and be like, no, they came to me, like, we're going to do it my way. It's like, but other people, because they have different experiences or they have different views on things, other people can provide different ideas, different feedbacks, different opinions on some of those projects. And because they're coming from their place of experience and you may not, because of yours, you may not see it.
Their experience could be so different.
Yeah. So sometimes you need kind of that creative gridlock because that's how like true creativity will grow is not because if all it is just you creating ideas, whatever client you're working for, every single ad or every single campaign you do is all going to look and feel the same.
Yeah. On Get Out.
Because if it's all from you, it's all going to look the same.
On Get Out.
You kind of need that, that board of creative people to be able to bounce ideas off of. And, because any company nowadays, every single company out there has an employee that's got an idea of a way to do things differently.
They survey. They ask those things all the time in surveys and all kinds of stuff, trying to cipher out
You
the
have
good
to have
stuff.
the outlet, right?
Yeah. Even big companies, Amazon. How many times have you gotten a survey after you buy something and different things that's like they want info,
Constantly.
constant info?
How does this translate to the rest of your life, Josh?
Whoa. As far as the creative process and the rest of my life, I mean, geez, you could talk about painting
Your
my,
entrepreneurial
painting my
side.
house and the designing our kitchen a certain way.
No, I'm talking about like, the job, like you want to like the entrepreneurial side of it versus just having a job.
Well, again, not everybody's that way.
I'm
And
not talking about you're a creative guy.
yeah,
You're
I
like,
respect that.
I want my kitchen to look a certain way.
Yeah. Well, if you
I
can
feel like
run,
your wife's gonna say, yeah, that's cool, but
I let her do a lot of that.
yeah. There's the
Try to
she's the
inform
one.
her
She's the
right
money.
way.
She's like not money like financially. I'm saying she's like in that situation. Like, no, I really want to see like I think these lights would look great. She's like, that's cute.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it this way.
Yeah. I mean, I should just listen at that point.
Yeah. A little different in different in the household than it is at the workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
But how does that like the mentality is like the last 5 years has just been kicked around. Like, again, social media really, I think, highlighted it, but also really just kind of hurt the whole thing too. It pushed a lot of people like, I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to do this. I'm going to have private jets. I want to do all this shit. You know what I mean? That to the extreme.
Yeah.
But then to where you're at, it's like, no, like you can be an entrepreneur, but like you don't necessarily have to, like you're not going to have 30 cars. You're not, like this is a way to make a living. This is a way to support a family.
Definitely.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, how does your mentality, how you've grown it, how you've learned from all this, how does it affect your day to day with your wife, your kids, with, like how you conduct your days? I mean, because I think that's the behind the scenes that you can listen to some podcasts from people that you're influenced by, or you enjoy how they talk or what they do. And they inspire you to not only just do your business side of things or your health side of things, but it's like, how do they live their everyday life? That transparency
from the family members,
just everything.
That's a tough one. I don't even know if I can catch that one. But as far as
you don't have to. I mean, we can move on. That's fine.
As far as like, I think what strikes me is in our previous conversations was kind of going back to the SEO aspect of it. If you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to start something, there's definitely stepping stones. And just like you guys are doing with this podcast, I've said it already, those guys who want to start an electrician company or a modeling company or car detailing, those opportunities exist on the internet by putting yourself out there. And I think that's when these people, they have this little doubt that I can't get started. I don't know how to get started. Even that guy that was sitting here, we were talking, Ryan's friend last week, he wanted to get started. And I know he had a portfolio, but he's like, he never did a website yet. Like, so no one's seeing it.
Yeah.
You have to get it out there. You have to at least at one point get over the stepping stone. Do you believe in what you're doing? Do you believe that you can do this well? Can you do this? Can you satisfy your clientele? And then if you believe that, then just start taking those little steps. Do the things like creating the website, which you can do almost like, how easy is it to create a website now?
Pretty easy.
It's pretty easy.
Did that? Yeah, we learned how to do that in high school.
You're
HTML.
Yeah.
Man, how old are you?
I'm younger than you. All right. We had this conversation. Last week, Josh was in the garage and he thought I was
50.
like pushing 50.
He told me that before you got here. I was like,
because like I said, my wife was actually in the studio the first half of the show last week, and he thought she was my daughter. And so when Josh came in the store, I was like, "How old did you think she was?" In her 30s. Wait, how old? She's older than me.
I got nothing. Nothing on that.
Too much BS podcasting.
No, I get what you're getting at there. It is easy to do a website. I was trying to get to just the mindset you have in business. How do you translate that to your own life? Because work's not everything.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, having a work balance. I think having that work balance. I think I do have work balance. I think you mentioned that, like when I come to the shop, I don't really have to talk about business.
There's people
And-
like I've met people in the shop.
They're selling something.
They're always selling themselves. Remember Yasha that came in?
Yes.
It was like, I mean, I signed a contract to do a voiceover that never happened. You know what I mean? It was just
Okay.
like every time it's like, oh yeah, we're making it happen. Like all this stuff. I was like, dude, I don't believe you anymore.
Welcome
like,
to the film business.
I'm just like, that's fine. Like, you know, like whatever. Like, just like, how are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's all I'm asking. Like, how are you? How's Max? Like his kid? Like,
Okay.
I'm like it doesn't have to. You don't have to be on all the time.
Yeah,
and I think that's what I see from you on a social level is.
Balance.
Well, yeah, you're Josh Porter.
I
You're
feel
not
like,
Josh Porter, IAMedia.
I understand
You're
what
not
you're
like,
saying,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
hopefully when you're home, I mean, obviously we all bring work home. We all bring stress home,
Yeah.
and it's never easy. We all have our shortcomings on that, and hopefully you learn from that part too.
Yeah. I think I am privileged to do what I do, and I think my family knows that, because when I do what I do, I make good money, right? And I do have the SEO thing out there that's bringing the customers in. I don't have to call cold calls and all that stuff all the time, so it allows me. And I don't think everybody has that, Steve. I think I'm privileged. I'm fortunate.
Well, you did the legwork. You
to do
you
the-
said you
yes.
keep doing it.
I
Right?
did
So
the
from a
legwork, and I
professional
do.
standpoint,
Yes, correct. And I'm still passionate, and I'm passionate about what I do. I will do every single client that calls me. I am going to do 100%. You know, I'm not going to sell you 110 because that doesn't exist. I'm going to do 100.
Does that translate to your kids?
Yeah, I think. Well, as far as the
You set
relationship
an example,
goes,
but the relationship with your kids,
Yeah,
the
because-
same thing.
yeah.
I guess that's. I'm not trying to steer this a certain way. I want to know from you is that you did the legwork, like the SEO, like you get people. You constantly are working on this to make it the way you think it should be. I think from your family life and your own personal life, I mean, like, does it equate? Because I think that's a big shortcoming. A lot of times when you're talking about all this stuff, you know, with you got to keep working. You got to, the entrepreneur spirit.
Yeah.
There's enough times where I've known people and you let work consume you. And then all of a sudden the other aspect of your life that's super important to you, it starts failing.
Yeah. I could have said, hey, when I got, kind of blocked out of this film fund idea, I could have said, you know what, family, I'm just going to pack up. I'm going to LA to try it there. You guys wait on me. That didn't happen. I'm not doing that. So there is, I think, at one point, a balance. And I think that comes back down to ethics and moral standing. I think it
prioritizing what's important.
Yeah, I would say faith-based. I'm a Christian, and I think having priorities. I think we're required to have things. I think
what comes first for you?
My family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then what?
Well, God, then family, then my business. Last.
Where do you come in the mix?
All of it.
Okay, you're all of it.
As far as me taking the breaks, I do that.
Okay.
I come to the shop. I come into the tinderbox, and I'll go to Carfagna's every now and then. And I definitely have enough moments of my own to take breaths, and just think about the next process. Some of my, I think, most creative ideas. Here's what's crazy. My cousin told me this one time, does a lot of assistant work for me and editing work, Lewis. He said one time, if you when you wake up in the morning, don't wake up right away just to go do something ready. Just let sit there and meditate, because you're almost in a half awake, half sleep state.
Yeah.
There's such synapses firing in your brain at that moment where I've actually practiced that to where I wake up. I know this is exactly what I'm going to do. I know I see it.
Yeah.
And I can present that so much better to the client once I actually have that vision.
It's clear a little bit there.
The vision is this is what we do. We do it like this. And whether it's coming down to the next day where we have a production, and I know I need this cast member and we need this many locations, and my mind is just like, you know what? This feels all right.
Sometimes when you're trying to think of something, your mind gets so bogged down with trying to think of certain things that there's not a whole lot of creativity flowing. It's those moments like when you wake up, when you're not thinking about work, that all of a sudden ideas start formulating. Because you're not trying to force the idea, you're just letting them come naturally to you. So sometimes you almost need that break and that reset because you're not thinking, but then all of a sudden something just pops in your head.
It's a second. It's in a split second. It happens
which
fast.
sounds so counterintuitive because you would think, all right, if I'm gonna have a focus session for myself
5 hours
where I'm sitting here, I'm just gonna try and come up with as many ideas.
Right.
But because you're trying to come up with ideas, you're forcing the issue. And so there's a lot of factors that are going into your mindset trying to make something happen. But when you're not, that's when something has the tendency to all of a sudden pop in there organically.
There is.
And then once that idea happens, now you can go into work mode. Like, okay, this was an idea I had when I was just hanging around, smoking a cigar, drinking a glass of whiskey. Like, now the business side comes. Where do I go from there? Where do I take this idea and how do I grow that?
Yeah.
But sometimes you need to shut off the creativity side, just because trying to be a creative person all the time gets exhausting. And it becomes difficult to come up with new ideas because a lot of times your mindset, you're just working off of things you've already done. And so you almost need that break in order for something new to happen.
There's camaraderie in it too. If you go into something thinking you're the most creative person, which we all think on film sets, I think the director shows up and you're like, this guy must be here because he's the brain of creativity and all things flow from this person's brain. But he's copied so many things that's come before that person.
He's been inspired.
But it's true copying.
Yeah.
And I think I respect that nothing new. There's scripture that says nothing new is under the sun.
Yeah.
I mean, these things have all been done before.
Yeah.
On
You don't
a
need to
simple
reinvent
level.
the wheel,
On
right?
a simple level. Yeah. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
I think some of the most creative thoughts that come to my mind, obviously, as seen on our t-shirts, is cigar and whiskey.
When you're drinking.
And also in the morning after I've had a little caffeine and I'm like getting ready for the day, in the shower.
Yeah.
Just going through like mundane tasks, but then all of a sudden, like I've had a little bit of caffeine and, all of a sudden it's like I'm relaxed, but all of a sudden, like now things are firing. I'm not saying you have to go to substances like alcohol or caffeine. I'm not saying that. And if you do go to substances, keep it light. All right. Don't go too crazy.
Be responsible.
The Beatles had a great, later career also, but like just keep it light. You know what I mean? Like everyday life stuff,
Were they high when they walked across the street?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably. But no, I mean, I have those thoughts. It's always about like how to translate those, and that's like harnessing those thoughts. The creative process for me is how do you take those ideas and then make it actual reality is one of the things that I struggle with. And I think a lot of people do as well.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Josh.
They do. And I think that's that little blockage that I'm referring to, which I feel like if you guys out there listening, who want to be entrepreneurial, there's just that little blockage and I think it can come from your parents teaching you to be a certain way, or that we're just over time, things have formed us, maybe each individually, that we can't get over these blocks in our life that, okay, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I'm not from a wealthy family. But I feel like what I'm saying is that the internet and this SEO thing,
you're big on that.
Yeah, I am. And it opens the door. And if you have a product that will sell and can do good, just believe in yourself, just start. And if it takes too much away from you or your family, if it's burning you out, well, maybe recalculate that. But at one point, you got to make the step. You got to make that step forward into making it a reality.
We've all heard it's never too late to start. But I mean, again, you have to take into check, like that's what I asked, like what's most important to you, and your family being the biggest thing. Like you could have said, all right, no, I want to succeed at this, and I'm not gonna leave my family necessarily. Some people will do that, but it's like, hey, you talk to your wife and your kids, like I'm gonna be gone for 3-6 months or whatever it is. I have to give myself a shot. Or you pick up the family and leave.
Yeah,
take them with you.
It's possible.
It happens.
Yeah,
all the time. What else do you guys want to talk about? We're going to do closing remarks.
I don't know.
Anything?
I don't know. I'm not that creative.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true.
I can pull it out of you, man. We'll see what happens. Let's see.
Well, I mean, for me, sometimes the times I get most creative are, when Steve texts me at like noon on a podcast Wednesday, like, "Hey, what do you want to talk about?" I don't know. Give me a minute. And I just sit there, turn off the TV because, TV to me is a distraction at times, but sometimes I also need that distraction. Yeah. It's like, all right, I just like, what's running through my head? What's going on? What's something we haven't talked about or something we could cover again, but it's been a while, because there have been some times where, we've definitely touched on the same subject in part 2 over the years, which obviously is going to happen when you do.
You have a certain format for something. It's just like business podcasts. It's about health podcasts. You're talking about the same shit over and over again.
Oh yeah. Well, back in 2020, we used to have people comment, because we were talking, like we tried very hard not to talk about a lot of.
Is that what you're talking about?
Huh?
You want to talk about politics? You want to talk about COVID? What do you want?
But like we tried very hard to steer clear of that stuff.
Yeah.
But then, there were some times where what we learned from COVID, we learned the importance of, physical health, physical well-being. And so that was something that would kind of interject its way into the conversation every week. Mm-hmm. And we would have people commenting like, "Oh, here we go again." It's like, I get it. Like, you may be tired of us saying the same point, but it's also relevant. Like, there are people out there that still need to know this. And, if you talk about something once and never touch on it again, how important of it was it?
Good point.
So sometimes you need to come back to those. And also, we've had conversations where, we've gone back and done another topic because we either have a different guest who's going to bring a new light to that topic, but also Steve and I have grown during the last time we did that topic. We have different life experiences that all of a sudden we've gone through. So now there's a new way of thinking. There's a new light. There's new experiences that we can share on that issue that at the time we last talked about it, we didn't have.
Sure.
So even though we're talking about the same topic from a broad scale, there's new information. Mm-hmm. There's new experiences that we can talk about.
Or we like talking about it. We've had new experiences. We've grown, like all that stuff. But we also like talking about that stuff. We could make this a current events part 2. We can do that if you want.
I have been contacted by Jordan Peterson to shoot his podcast before.
Really?
Oh, within the last couple of months. Yeah. That's the thing. Like that podcast is, it's huge, a lot of views and all that, but it goes back, like, well, why can't you guys do that? Like, why are, like there's steps, I feel like not.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You never know when that lightning in a bottle could hit. Like when I get these random cold calls, that's what each one feels like. Mm-hmm. When I get contacted by a client through the internet, which I've never talked to in my life, never heard about.
Sure.
And they're like, it's just like lightning in a bottle. Like, wow, this is new work. This is awesome. This is gonna be great.
Well, we can't afford you. That's one thing.
Well,
how much pro bono work do you do?
You can pay them in cigars and whiskey.
I'll come for cigars and whiskey.
Yeah, right. I enjoyed this conversation because, Josh, you shared a bit, and I know you like to keep it, like you seem to wanted to keep it like more on the professional side. You talk about startup, you talk about like the entrepreneurial spirit. We do talk personal on the part 2, and I appreciate you sharing what you shared last week and a little bit tonight, especially about the business side of it. It's absolutely, it's always cool to hear, no matter what industry someone's in, but to hear their side of it. You know what I mean? To people that listen to this for the whiskey or the cigars, obviously part 2 is different. People that want to listen to the more personal life stuff, sometimes this, like to Nate's point, it's like not every episode's for everyone, right? And I've listened to podcasts that I'm like, yeah, it's kind of the same thing every week. And I fade away for a little bit and I check back. And sometimes I need that because it's one of those things. It had me going in a certain mode or a certain feel, you know what I mean? And I was great with it, but then I kind of got a little bit not tired of it, but it was just like, all right, I don't need to listen to this again. And then it was like weeks or months later, I go back, I'm like, man, I'm in a rut or whatever. And I go back and check it out. And it's like that kind of like it reignites the fire again. So yeah, it's not always the same thing on this show, but depends on the guest. And I mean, again, I think having Josh on here has been great because I like hearing that stuff. I like seeing a success story. I like hearing about a success story that's still in the making, right? You know what I mean? Like,
hopefully,
it's success enough. I mean, you've learned a lot. You're gonna have your setbacks. You're gonna have your failures. You're gonna have your next setback. You're gonna have your next failure. The story's still being written, and I think that it's fun to be a part of that. And you talk about us doing this podcast for so long. There are some weeks where I text Nate where I like, what are we going to talk about in part 2? Especially when it's just Nate and I. You know what I mean? It's like when it was Jake and I. It was like coming to the table every week with a new life topic in part 2. Like, it's hard enough at this point, 277 episodes in. What cigar are we going to smoke, and what whiskey are we going to smoke? You know what I mean? We can smoke the newest one, but again, like, that's not always the greatest thing. And then sometimes it's like you pull out one of these, the limited edition, we do that. It's like, it's not always easy to do it every week. But going back to the beginning of part 2 here is, like, it's Josh, like, keep doing it, keep putting out the content. You know what I mean? Don't take the weeks off. Don't take a step back, because there are people that they get benefit from it. It's Ray says, I think we all like to hear people's backstories.
It makes people more interesting.
It does. I mean,
It's an origin story.
Well, I mean, like, guess like Josh,
1983.
You could pitch you on what he does for a living, but that's why I ask sometimes about, like, later in the episode, like, it's like, how does this translate to your everyday life? Because everyone listens to shows and reads up on
Selling them more stuff.
Yeah, it's fun and all that stuff, but it's like, what the behind the scenes, because that's what people deal with. Like, that's what the listeners deal with. It's not just, you can get inspired by someone with their success or their failures and all that stuff, but it's like, it's the real life. It's the real grit behind it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not asking, but it's like one of those things. It's like, what was that breaking point? When were you about to quit? Well, those are the stories that really, I think, hit home for people.
Early on in part 2, when we were talking about, the cinematic mode and stuff on iPhones and whatever, Ryan, who was our guest last week, he was talking about, he used to use that to shoot the quote unquote behind the scenes of the Smoking 10 event.
Right.
Which wasn't really behind the scenes. It was like, hey, here's a video and pictures of during the event. It would actually be interesting if people actually saw the behind the scenes leading up to the 10 event.
You don't want to see that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's so much stuff that Steve and Brian, the owner of the Tinderbox, have to go through to be able to pull off an event like that. So, like, when Ryan, does that video, when that video goes out, you see, the 250 people there at the event. You see all the vendors. You see everyone smoking, drinking, having a great time, all the raffle prizes. People don't see us being there at 2 or 3 in the morning, setting up tables and chairs, setting up all
Brian, we're there at 5.
Yeah, setting up.
Don't trump that up.
So,
Brian's there at 2 or 3. We were there at 5, 6.
I was there at 8 because I was told to. But no, like, and then also the after, like, tearing all that stuff down, putting stuff away. We've been there all day. We're exhausted. That's the stuff people don't see. And it's, people always sit there and they give you guys tons of compliments about how well the event goes off. I mean, we even had one of our headliners at the event this year say, like, this is the smoothest event of this size that I've ever been a part of. And that's a huge compliment. But
you, Ryan, and Kyle just gave me a great idea for next year.
All they were seeing is the event actually being pulled off. they didn't see all the hours that went into setting it up, setting up the vendors, and setting up the tent, the tables, all that stuff. Like that's a whole nother ball game that people don't see. But we also have such a great community at the store that they know how stressful it is. They know how much work goes into it, and they volunteer to help, which is great because, you know, they're there to have a great time. They're not there to work, but they're like, what can I do? What can I do to help? Because you guys have done such an amazing job. We know it takes a lot. What can I do to help? And you know, that's something that not everyone gets to see, and maybe not everyone wants to see that. But I think when people see the work that goes into it, they're even more appreciative of the final product.
Sure.
I enjoy the tent event every year.
Me too. Want to go to an event like that.
Without doing any of the other stuff.
Yeah. I want to go to an event like that. I think Brian would like to go to an event like that. I think the whole staff would love to go to an event like that. So if anyone else wants to do that, it'd be fun. Not in competition, but
yeah.
But that was a great idea. I think I got to figure out how to do that.
Write
I have
that
to
down.
I gotta like get video of me calling reps and you know
Nice.
when people commit and all that stuff.
Yeah, you're talking to me right there. That's story narrative. I'm on it.
Yeah.
Film it.
Can't
Shoot
afford you. I already told you that. Be very cool, like, right? Imagine that, right? So get everyone in the tent, and then all of a sudden, like, I get up on the screen, and it's all that, like, it's like the promo video, you know, it's like the build up to where we're at, and it's like, welcome to Smoking Tent Event, 2024. It would be cool. Hype video. All right, let's do closing remarks here, guys. We can talk about this all night. I mean, Josh, thank you very much for being a part of this. I got more questions for you, but we'll have to do it the next time.
Thank you.
I want to talk more about your failures. It's interesting.
I got others.
Oh, I know you do, and they're great stories. But yeah, closing remarks on the creative process, on finding that drive, whatever it is, how you live your everyday life. I mean, Josh, you can start it off with closing remarks here. Sean, you want to say anything? You're good. All right. So,
okay,
just leave the chair. I'll get it. Yeah, we had a hard enough time.
You had a hard enough time unfolding it. Let's not let them fold it back together.
My closing remarks would be, when we're talking about the creative process, is when I came into the shop for the first time in 2013. That's a little more backstory on that. I was so enthralled by the community, the camaraderie, the people that were there, everybody from Jimbo, Barnes, you guys, Brian, I met Mike Fry there, just so many people.
About that.
It's been a creative process with him. But it was such a cool thing to see that. And I've been part of this community for a while now, but at one point, I wrote that script that was called The Regulars.
Yeah.
And it had
the Bud K thing or whatever it was.
Yeah. The funny movie,
night.
The Last of His Kind.
Oh, God.
And
got dust on it.
I've written a couple of screenplays just based off of the whole community of the cigar community and what it's meant to me and what I've seen and been part of. So, it's just been a pleasure to come back on the show again. And
Thank you.
I think the cigar community, and I don't know if it's just the shop. I don't know. I think you guys have a special shop there with Brian, and you guys have it's just been special over the years. So that just, it's imprinted on me so many ideas and helped me with my creative process.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you. Nate, how about yourself?
I think there's a lot of people out there that are more creative than they give themselves credit for. The thing that always holds them back, right? I shouldn't say always. The thing that I think holds them back most of the time is the fear of failure, because they're afraid to take that step and put the time and resources into it and it not work out. because everyone wants to be successful at everything they do. It's just statistically not possible. And
It's okay to fail.
it is okay to fail.
Just try.
Yes. And
yeah,
I think also what hurts people, and I'm speaking personally on this one, is when they do try and it does fail. I've gone through that myself. And you know, it definitely took a lot of time to even foster the idea of doing it again. You know, because I don't want to be put in that same situation. You know, I don't want to put my family in that same situation. In my previous industry, you know, creativity was non-existent because, you know, there were certain ways that things were done, and that's just how you did them. And then anytime they, you know, came up with a new system or whatever, you know, no one likes it when a new system comes out. You know, so when I was in the corporate world, and you know, they changed the entire system that we were using for our daily activities, there was so much pushback.
Yeah.
You know, no one that was using it saw any benefits to it whatsoever because it was change. You know, everyone was comfortable using the old way, even though the new thing may be better. It may have more features. Because it's new, there's that fear of the unknown.
Always.
And so, you know, people don't want to, you know, sometimes try something that's different because they've gotten comfortable with the way things have been.
Stretch yourself.
Yeah. And, you know, it's
always important to stretch.
Stretch your uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know, but in my
Yeah.
my current position, you know, there's definitely been some times and some opportunities to be more creative. You know, I've actually been approached by, you know, one of the owners about doing something in the future. And, you know, all they did was give me the idea, like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, okay, I can already see some, you know, some hurdles that we would have to go through to get to be able to pull something like this off. Let me think about how we could do it. And so I've just, I spent a lot of the rest of that day creative juices. By that, he means wine and liquor,
No,
probably.
well, I thought it was a compliment.
But no, I mean, when, like, had that individual not came up to me and said, hey, what do you think about doing this? I probably wouldn't have thought about it, especially being so new in the company. I've only been there for 5 months, and it was 3 months in, I think, when that person came up to me with that idea. So it's something that I was like, okay, I hadn't thought about this because I'm new. I'm trying to focus on other aspects of my job. But when I have time, what can I do? And I've actually bounced ideas off of not just people I work with, but also customers as well.
Sure.
Like, hey, this is what because yes, I have an idea in mind, but that's my own idea. Obviously, I would like my thoughts to be the one that are put on paper and the ones that actually happen. But if I get feedback from other people, they may see things from a different, if I ask a customer, hey, what do you think about doing this? They're looking at it from a customer standpoint. Like, well, I don't, here's the issue I see with that. Like, I would, as a consumer, I would rather have this option. Okay. I hadn't thought about that. And then, one of the owner's sons, who's in charge of all the social media and marketing side for the whole business, he had said something to me about it. And I talked to him. I was like, oh, well, your dad said this. And so this is what I've been coming up with. He's like, oh, well, I actually went to this place that did it this way. And I was like, oh, shit. Now I got to think about something different. Like, So all of a sudden it starts making me be more creative. Like, okay, do I do it this? Do I do it that? Like, is there a way to marry the two together? And I haven't really brought it up again because I've been so focused on the core aspect of my job. But at least now, if that conversation does come up, the owner that originally approached me with the idea, he has no idea that I've been actually working on something. So I think if he does come back and be like, well, hey, did you ever think about that? I'm like, actually, yes, I have. Here's what I got. And ultimately it's his business.
Sure.
So, if he doesn't like my ideas, then that's the way it's going to go. But if I at least bring something to the table, he also knows, like, okay, this is someone I can go to, for an idea, or someone who's actually going to think about this from a different aspect than I am.
Yeah. For me, it's the creative process and all this stuff, and being passionate about it, and finding what level you want to be involved with, whether you be an entrepreneur or just be a job. It's finding your inspiration, like your why. It's all those things that I've struggled with. I continue to struggle with at times. How do you stay excited? For me, it's a roller coaster.
I feed off I'm sorry to cut in you, but I do feed off on my, like, I get new clients.
Yeah.
And it brings a new, because of the way my business is structured. Like,
sure.
Like, it's not the same thing all the time.
New vigor.
I get new vigor constantly being brought whenever I get a new client. It's just, it's not the same where I feel like you guys can get easily sucked down that rabbit hole.
I'm talking about like doing podcasts, doing the day-to-day job. Like, I mean, I get where you're at, but I mean, again, it's even your personal life, your day-to-day, waking up, having this, like, what do you eat today?
Oatmeal every day.
Is that what you do?
Yep.
All right. So like 3 meals a day, like all oatmeal?
Breakfast though. So.
It's the why, it's the inspiration. I've seen myself over the years and my successes, my shortcomings, the failures, everything in between. It's the inspiration. Like it is the why. It's me from the outside looking in. A lot of times from certain people, it's like, oh, everything's going great. And it's like, I'd say vast majority of the time, I agree. Other times I'm just like, I'm in a rut. And I think that's the big thing for me is how do you avoid those ruts? How do you keep things exciting? How do you not let yourself fall too far down into a valley of just the rut turns into a valley, and then all of a sudden you just
self-loathing.
You're not happy with your job. You feel bored with your everyday life. You do all that stuff, and what I've found is what's worked for me is, one, quote, keep putting out content, keep doing it, keep doing the day to day. What's working for you, keep after it.
Like we did the walks,
eat oatmeal, whatever. Like eat healthy. Exercise, go to work. What interests you, learn about it. The people that are important to you, show them. Those are those fundamental things for me that has, it's not always been easy because I've had my shortcomings, I've had my failures. And I think that my biggest success, hopefully, is going to continue to build up and hopefully happen. But all the successes that I've had that are currently going well, the ones in the past that have turned into failures at times, career-wise, relationship, personal, like just me, it's taking that time to really try to learn from all of that so that I can cater those day-to-day stuff so that I can continue to stay excited about life. All the stuff, Josh with his job and his being an entrepreneur and his career, that can be taken away in an instant if he just loses his excitement for life. And Nate, you're at a point right now, and I think that you're doing extremely well, and you have a great wife, and the job's going well. You want to keep that excitement. I've been working the same job for over a decade now, and there's been a steadiness, there's been some excitement, and it comes and goes. And sometimes when it does get stagnant, it's because I've allowed that myself, and I need to find that excitement. I've been in a relationship now for going on 2 years, and thankfully she pushed a lot of that. She pushes to let's do stuff, let's go, because there's a consistency, I think, for me, and I would say for a lot of people that may have a little bit of that, is that even doing a lot of exciting things, that becomes stagnant because you're just doing all that stuff. Finding the true enjoyment in what you're doing work-wise is great. Your personal health is more important, and the people in your life, it all takes effort. And so for me, with this creative process and talking about the entrepreneur mindset and steps to success and those, Josh, what you shared tonight, for me, it's how do you keep building off of failures? How do you keep building off of successes? How do you keep building off of the good days? Taking those good days for granted, or stewing on those failures, or stewing on those things. We talked about it earlier in part 2 about doing things out of spite, or I'm going to be better than that. It's short-lived.
Better than you.
Be better than you. Yeah. So that's my constant, not struggle, not battle. It's that constant effort that I want to really keep the pedal down just to a point. And it's not always floored, but it's just give it a little gas all the time, so that
keep moving forward.
Yeah, you give it a little gas so that you're still moving in that direction, right? You're still my excitement is not what it used to be. All right, well, I'm gonna give it a little more gas. What do I need to do? I need more fuel in the tank? Do I need to look elsewhere? Do I need to educate myself on something new? Do I need a new hobby? Do I need to I guess, revisit an old hobby? I used to enjoy cigars more. Do I need to smoke a cigar? I used to exercise more. Do I need to go back and exercise? Do I need to go out and see a new area? If you like hiking, if you like going out and seeing scenery, when was the last time you did it? Right. That's that quicksand of life that I think that really hinders the creative process. And so that's something that I know that I'm continuing working on. I continue to work on. And I also, I look at this weekly session with all of us, weekly podcast, that hopefully I can kind of re-energize myself. And I hope you guys get the same out of it. And Nate, I know you're here every week. And Josh, thanks for coming back. And all those that are listening for the first time, I appreciate it. I hope you guys come back. And those that listen every week and listen on the podcast apps, or if you're part of the conversation, we appreciate all the support. That's the only reason that we do this, because otherwise we just sit in the garage smoking, which would be fine. But we love having a bigger crew in the audience and in the garage and doing this. We're never experts on this stuff, but I mean, I tell you what, it's putting that fuel in the tank every week. So I appreciate that, guys.
Thank you.
Josh, cheers.
Cheers, Steve. Nate.
Everyone out there, happy Whiskey Wednesday. We'll see you next week. We got Jonathan Herring and Ryan Ponis on next week from Forged Cigars. Wow. Not in the garage. We'll have a couple of screens going on, so we'll see you guys remotely. But good guys. Been on the podcast before, but we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy your week. I'm headed to Chicago this weekend. See a Cubbies game, and most importantly, family.